you remember Johnny Devine?
Yeah.
Well, JP used to teach pro wrestling out of my gym.
Jesus.
So
That's fucking so cool.
And I'm friends with a lot of the larger pro wrestling community.
There's a big community here, isn't it?
Oh, fuck yeah. It's legendary. I still know Lindsay, Teddy Hart's, but I know a lot of the Hart family. I used to train at BJ's.
Yeah.
I did pro wrestling for 4 months while I was still in the police.
Yeah.
While still you're okay.
Oh yeah, I had to stop. There's a couple of reasons I had to stop. One, my wife gave birth to a nipper. It was like every penny fucking counts because that pro wrestling training ain't cheap. But it was mainly because it's physically the most arduous shit I've ever done. I mean, I've done some mental stuff over the years.
And that was one of the toughest ones.
Not one of, is.
Jesus.
People do not understand how difficult it is to do pro wrestling.
Fuck. Because, okay, so I mean, that's a perfect place to start. Why why is pro wrestling interesting? Because, I mean, I grew up obsessed with martial arts, and it was always like pro wrestling was like the anti-martial art almost. Like, what got you into wrestling?
A lot of it's a cultural thing. So in the UK, it was very much a working class escape pro wrestling. So professional wrestling in the UK versus professional wrestling, as it was known, we used to call American wrestling, which was very much more glitz and glamour. Speaking of. Even if you watch some of the territory wrestling from down in the South or the NWA / WCW early days wrestling compared to the WWE products, it was still way more theatrical than we did in England. So in England, it was rounds.
Okay.
Weight classes and 2 falls, 2 submissions or a knockout will decide the winner. And it was actually real moves.
So it was more of the shoot instead of the work.
Yeah, exactly. In England, if you couldn't shoot, you couldn't wrestle. And you did not last up until kind of the Big Daddy era came in, the Shirley Crabtrees and the John Haystackses. But you look at a guy like the ones most people think about, like Fit Finlay or Regal or Marty Jones was another big name back in the day, Rollerball Rocco, Dynamite. These were all guys that would literally fold you in half.
Like legitimately.
Legitimately. And even when they were working in the ring, there's one match. Marty Jones is a guy called Digger Nolan, I think the guy's name was. He came in from Australia. Very inexperienced opponent. And Marty Jones was trying to work with him. And it was supposed to be like this long round and they're going to have draws. About a few minutes in, realised, you can't do shit with this. So he threw him into the ropes. Then he dropped 16, knocked him out and pinned him. And it
just forget it.
It's done. So back in England, the ability to shoot wasn't a bonus. You had to.
And is that in part why a lot of the people that did well in the UK wrestling did well in Japan? Because Japan's similar, that it's
very stiff.
You
look at the guy. I mean, we had the Snake Pit in Wigan, which in the submission grappling world is obviously very, very famous. Billy Robinson, of course, is a prop to the Snake Pit. Karl Gotch actually made his bones at the Snake Pit because he was a high-level Olympian, Olympia level, but he wasn't a sub guy until he went to the Snake Pit.
Which is hilarious because on the other podcasts we were doing with Blake, that the last episode that we did the Snake Pit, we did Billy Robinson last week, and next week we're doing Karl Gotch.
Well, Harry Smith, he's Davey Boy Smith's son. He's actually my catch wrestling coach.
Jesus Christ!
And he's under Billy. He was under Billy Robinson, rest in peace. But he was a coach under Billy Robinson, and he's an active catch wrestler even to this day. Training partner with Josh Barnett and all that sort of thing as well. And Harry's a unit too. I mean, he's like 6'5", 6'6". He's about 280, 295 with about 2% body fat. He's an absolute unit.
Unacceptable.
Oh, dude, it's ridiculous. It's like Hulk and Loki when we wrestled. The 51-year-old man. Say, I'll have a bit of this. But for me, pro wrestling growing up as a kid, it always had a little more respectability as a sport in England.
Okay.
And then as a young kid, the glitz and glamour comes. You think it's real because you do, and it looked real. It looks
yeah.
Then you see the glitz and glamour in the American product, where the ability to wrestle was less important to how good you looked in spandex.
So did you guys just kind of look down a little bit in terms of on the American style as well, or was it just
as I got older? Yeah, but it killed the English style off because
it became
so big and so. Right. Glitzy and all that sort of thing too. And the English was kind of on its arse a little bit anyway. He was always doing good TV numbers, but the head of the TV station was a guy called Greg Dyke, and he didn't like it. He thought it was lowbrow. And to be fair, it was.
I mean,
he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And he would he moved this timing slot from Saturday late afternoon to Saturday midday. Now, of course, in England, a lot of the working class people are still working on the weekends, and so they get home on an evening, eat the tea, watch the wrestling. You put it on at noon, you're literally halving your figures instantly out the gate. And he'd say, "Oh, the figures are declining, cut the program." But it's like, yeah, do you know what I mean? So it was a real class move, as in against the lower class, to actually get rid of this working man sport.
So,
Is that me?
let's see.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
Sounds good. All good.
Might as well take it.
That's good. I know that. This is someone's trying to flog me something.
Okay.
Sorry, gentlemen.
All good.
That's
Man.
all right. Doesn't edit. So yeah, once it had gone for the TV screens, the English scene died on its arse. So a lot of the guys went to America or went to Europe.
Okay.
Or Japan was another one they go to as well, of course.
Yeah.
But if you go back now, the irony being now is if you look at the advent of MMA and UFC, Josh Barnett does a promotion called Bloodsport.
That's right.
Which is great to watch. It's still pro wrestling,
but it's with legit guys and like
predetermined, not fake.
Yeah.
Like,
Scripted, not fake.
Scripted, not fake.
Yeah.
And the UK scene is being rediscovered. So all the stuff I've been going on about for years.
Yeah.
Here's an example I use. There's a wrestler called Tiger Mask from Japan. Very famous. In had these like cartoons and comic strips.
Oh, Blake mentioned him. Yeah.
Well, he was used to fight in England as Sammy Lee, a quick kick Lee. Because again, it was like, oh, he's obviously from China or Japan. Just stick a Bruce Lee name on him.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
And he fought Mark Rollerball Rocco, probably one of the best wrestlers in the history of the game, like ever, both in terms of his ability and his psychology. He was next level. He actually taught Dynamite Kid to be as good as he was. He was actually better than Dynamite, in my opinion, but that's a personal thing. And they had this match, and it was a technical exchange and drama, and the crowd were into it. And at the end of the match, which had gone on for quite a while, Sammy Lee came off the rope and Rocco hit him, punched him. Ref caught it, DQ.
Oh shit!
One punch meant something. These days, if you watch the American games, punch, 5 kicks in a row.
Yeah.
You know as well as I do. If I hit you properly, 2 and you're done.
Yeah.
So all that's telling me is you can't fight worth a shit. And it's the same when you get the guys doing the somersaults and they jump on the people and blah 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 blah, and then they back up for the next position. There's no story. I know wrestling is not a legitimate fight, but that doesn't mean it needs to be realistic, not real. Like a fight scene in a James Bond film, or in anything, even in a superhero movie. It has to be real for the superhero. Superman's got certain things he'll do. Hulk's got certain. You want to start an argument on the internet that's more involved and passionate than politics. You go on any nerd board and say this superhero versus this superhero.
Oh, it's
mental.
People will die on that hill.
They absolutely will.
As a giant nerd, I know. I have my own opinions about a few of those matchups. So yeah,
the only one I'm consistent on is everybody sleeps on Spidey.
And again, because of the mental side of it, right? People underestimate Spidey's.
They always do. Do you remember when Doc Ock became Spidey? He was Superior Spider-Man. So Doc Ock's brain took over Spider-Man, and he was in the body for a time. And he fought Matt Gargan, the Scorpion.
Yeah.
And with no limits, because Peter held back.
I mean, that's what people don't realize.
Doc Ock had no limits, and he actually punched his jaw clean off because he was like, and he sort of looks at his hands, and he was like, "Oh my god!" So anyway, everyone sleeps on Spidey.
Fuck, agreed. We'll get into comic books at that time. But
so yeah, that was how I got into pro wrestling.
And so it was so martial. So what about martial arts then? When did the passion? When did you get into martial arts?
Martial arts I came at the arse end of the Bruce Lee boom.
Okay,
because he was like early 70s is when he was rising.
Yeah,
he died, and then it was kind of a Marilyn Monroe thing because he died so young. Legacy lived on, sort of thing. And so the Bruce Lee thing was kind of there, and it was always kind of floating in the background. But I was into 8-bit computer games at the time. Still am.
Sure.
I still retro game quite heavily.
Really? Eh?
Still on the same hardware I did when I was a kid. Literally the same hardware with the same games that I played, which was a ZX Spectrum. And there was a game on it called Way of the Exploding Fist, which was, I suppose, kind of like Karate Champ.
Sure. Okay.
If karate fighters going at it, and I became obsessed with this game and another one called Yi Kung Fu, which was actually a Konami coin-up. And I used to find these games fascinating. You play them all together. I want to do that, I want to do that. And you try and copy the moves.
Of course, right? Yeah.
But I never really took it seriously because there was always that kid at school that took up martial arts and told you about it, and then they get the shit kicked out of them. And it's like, well, what's the point? If you're going to spend all this time doing it and you get battered, why am I? I'll just do what I do. Anyway,
that's one thing that's a little different in the UK. Is it's much scrappier than it is in Canada.
God,
Right?
it's
Like,
ridiculous.
you guys are seeing fights like once a week kind of thing, right? It's
To divert slightly from the point of how I got into it. In the UK, you go out on a night out, you have a pint, you have a kebab, you have a fight.
right.
That's
That's
your night
part of the
It's your night out. If you're not at a ruck, it's a bit of shit night, really.
fuck.
So you get a lot of it, and it's weird. And the thing is, as well, in England, you don't get like culturally speaking, when you look at a fight in Canada or the US, and it's not always like this, but it's two guys decide they're going to go at it, and it's like the tables go past and they go like that.
Yeah.
In the UK, you start a fight, five of your mates are going to swarm you from the back and rat stomp you.
Yeah.
Because winning's the thing. The fight is irrelevant. It's the win that's the ring. So we're like pack hunters the way we fight in England. Whereas out here is definitely much more of an ego dick measuring contest.
Of course.
And a lot of the guys will, of course, get ailed up with their mates, and then they'll look for a victim, not an opponent, which is another difference. They don't want an opponent, they want a victim, and they'll go, okay, we'll go in there and do it. And again, there are differences or exceptions, but generally speaking, that's the lay of the land amongst a certain element of the populace. And you need, one of the things as a self-defense instructor is you need to learn to navigate the water you're swimming in.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
So that's, you adapt to it quite quickly.
So that would be a reason, because there's not a lot of martial arts, especially when you were a kid. There wasn't a ton of martial arts in the UK to start with, I would assume.
We had a massive, to be fair, we had a big representation. We had karate was a big thing.
Okay.
Judo, we always did well. Like we had like Neil Adams. Actually, one of the gyms I used to teach out of, Karen Briggs taught out of it as well.
Jesus.
Never met her.
Right.
But I trained with a few of her training partners that knew her. And we had a lot of Kung Fu representation. Lau Gao was a particularly big one. One of my heroes, Alfie Lewis, Alpha the Animal Lewis, the greatest semi-contact fighter ever to grace the face of the planet. He was a Lau Gao guy originally. He kickstarted like the freestyle karate revolution in the UK with the semi-contact circuit. And he, up until I think it was last year, he held the world record for most WACO titles. Only last year he'd lost his title. Now, bear in mind, he retired, early 90s. That's how long he held that record. I actually had the joy to interview Alfie for a podcast, and I still occasionally talk to him. Just amazing, just a character. It's just a character. We had the scene, we had the standards, the karate, a few schools of Kung Fu. There was some Wing Chun there as well, and of course the judo. Boxing was always very big in the UK. Wrestling, ironically, considering the lineage of places like the Snake Pit, was never really a thing. It died.
So it was much more like the early 1900s. It was huge, but by the time you get
it was massive up until about the late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
That was when it was still big on TV and all that sort of thing as well, but it was never, as a combat art, certainly it started to die off at that point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So for me, I got battered. I was coming home from school one day, and someone told somebody that someone once heard me say something that I said something about their girlfriend. It was one of those.
Of course.
Crap. But obviously, kids being kids are stupid and make really stupid decisions. Some just don't grow out of it. And him and two of his mates, again, pack hunting, because he didn't want to do it one-on-one.
Yeah.
He had his mates, and I'll give him his due, though. He had his mates on standby.
So he came in first.
Yeah, by Manx standards, it's a fair fight. It was like, just so you know, if you win, we're coming in. But until then, so by Manx standards, it was practically Queensberry rules. So anyway, he clattered me once upside the head, and he had these chunky sobs on his hand, like the big sobbing rings.
Oh, fuck.
Boom one side, and I just looked at him, and boom the other side, and fed me a few, and I just looked at him, I was like, are we done?
Right.
And he just walked off laughing. Now, I'd love to say that was because I've got a granite chin and all that, but I just didn't know what the fuck was going on, so I laughed. Just froze. It was nothing to do with being hard bastard or anything like that. And that was at that point. I was like, right, no one's ever doing that to me ever again.
Right. And how old is this about?
14, 15.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I think it was 14 and a half-ish. You know, it's one of those sort of things. And I joined a local karate school, which was at the time it was Shorai Karate, but it's now Dentokai.
Okay.
Under a gentleman called Sensei Lee Kofi, who I'm in touch with most of the guys I've trained with.
That's so cool.
And I still give respects to him. He's one of the people I mentioned in the book quite a lot. He's in the forward of my book. Very, very traditional karateka.
Okay.
But just hard with it. Not in a nasty way, just very, very serious. He meditates before every class, like without exception. He's there and he stays there and he sits there. Hits like an absolute freight train. And I was blessed that he gave me a filter with everything I did moving forward through life. I'd had a taste of what it should be. So one of the skills he gave me and the discipline, everything instilled him in the karate was obviously a wonderful gift. But it was the biggest gift Sensei Kofi gave me was the filter. Because
He set that bar.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew. So when I started moving through arts, like the next arts I did, because I actually dropped out for a time. And this is
most of us do.
Well, it was. I wrote. This is actually. I wrote a book called The Hound's Tale.
The Hound's Tale.
Yeah, a Hound's Tale.
Hound's Tale.
Stories of the journey from victim to teacher. And it's autobiographical without being an autobiography because no one really gives a shit about what I did growing up.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff I got up to is quite interesting.
Yeah.
So it's from when I started in martial arts all the way through up until present day and all the bits and pieces I got up to in between. And I was just 3 weeks away from going for my brown belt.
Okay.
So I've been doing it. I was
putting in some work. Yeah.
I'm putting some grinding with it. And this is a very hard traditional school. You know, when you're in your stance and it was like just giving you a smack to see if your focus was there and like, you know, stick across the leg. Yeah. All the good stuff like, you know, the
classic.
Not abusive, just tough training. You couldn't do it these days. Not a chance.
Because tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind, like what you love about karate. I mean, karate is a beautiful style. I mean, one of the things that I was even training just a woman who had some karate experience at the gym the other day, and it really does seem like more than almost any other style, it was really the one punch kill. Right? Like they were literally going for, like, I don't think there's anyone I don't know if anyone hits harder than some of those karate spinning back kicks and whatnot. Like, just tell me a little bit about why karate is cool.
For me, it was the art that was nearby. So I'd love to say that was a giant decision-making process that went into it. It's like, what's near? Well, there's a karate school literally 400 yards away from your door. I'll go there. It seems to be the Calgary way as well. It is.
Okay, that's why location.
In Calgary, it's like, how close is it? Or there's a taekwondo school here, or there's like, you know, there's a assassin school 5 kilometers away. Taekwondo's close. So anyway, it depends on the style. I did Shukakai.
Sure, okay.
And Shukakai, again, a lot of the practitioners you'll find in that. One of the more famous ones in England is a gentleman called Peter Constantine, who was also one of the forefront leaders of the self-defense revolution in the UK.
Okay.
And I actually was under Peter Constantine and another guy called Jeff Thompson in the British Combat Association.
Thompson sounds familiar. Sorry, continue.
Most people know Jeff Thompson more than Peter. Okay. I don't want to start argue. It's not which one is best, which one is the other. Both of them had a massive influence on me, but Peter had more of an influence on me than Jeff. Okay. Peter's a Manchester boy too, so of course, long-term pride with that, I suppose. But Peter, the way Peter presents his information resonated with me. And it's not that Jeff isn't a good teacher; he's legitimately elite class. And I learned so much from Jeff. But Peter, there was just something that clicked. Yeah. Like at school, you can have a good math teacher, a good English teacher, a good PE teacher, but certain teachers will just click with you more than others. And it's nothing to do with the others being bad. It's just that one resonated with you. So Peter had a way of intellectualizing that really struck a chord with me.
Sweet.
But he was a Shukakai guy. But that was a little bit down the line. Shukakai, one of the founders of that, or one of the leading practitioners, is a guy called Shigeru Kimura. Now, he made a study of physiology in sports.
Oh, cool.
And one of the things he did was apply those principles to punching. So, like, if you look at the way a lot of the punching was done in karate, and still is, a lot of times it's like your hip and your fist go as one.
Right, it's just a lot of this.
Which isn't logical. I mean, in no other discipline do you actually move the things in unison together.
Because you usually need a rooted position and something.
Well, even without that, if you throw a ball, what's the last thing that goes?
Yeah, of course.
The ball.
Yeah.
If you swing a bat, what's the last thing that moves? The bat. If you throw a javelin, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
In punching, it's the body and the hand moving as one unit. So you've actually got this divorce.
Interesting.
Between the delivery system and what you actually want to do. It's like, you try and throw a ball like that, it'll have 3 foot sort of bounce in front of you.
I can't even imagine how awkward that would be.
I get people to do it at seminars when I'm teaching it. And it's like, everyone's like, what? It's like, yeah, exactly. But if you watch a guy, the other way most people punch is they go here. Now, what you got is a central axis there.
Of course.
So if I've got power going forward, I'm leaking out the back as well because I'm rotating around my center.
Yeah.
Whereas what Kimura did is he actually shifted it to the side. So I'm coming around myself. So I'm actually putting it on a hinge.
Oh, so instead of right over here, you're hinging over
your hips. Right. What you're doing is it maximizes your ability to deliver your power. You can actually see this in a lot of guys. Like Tyson is a good example of this. He's all hip.
Yeah.
There's no rotation with that. It's just everything's drive. It's all from the hips.
That's why it's so powerful.
And Marciano's coach, he was English, ironically, and he used to tell him, say, Rocky, hit him with your ass. So it's the same thing.
I've heard my dad say that.
Yeah, hit him with your asshole. But so anyway, so the big thing in Shukakai was power generation. It was a little more upright, a little less rigid than some of the more traditional styles like Shotokan, for example.
Right.
So for me, the one hit was legitimately, if I hit you, you're going to stay hit.
Yeah.
And so for me, that made an awful lot of sense. And I still actually teach that to this day. I still teach karate. We have a chills program at the dojo. I actually do assist and teach the karate program. I'm not the lead karate instructor. My business partner is. But I will teach the karate, but I don't lay claim to being a great karate master. I just know how to kind of maximize what you're doing with it.
How to integrate it well with other things. Yeah.
But if you look at like karate as an art, it's just another way of hitting someone. So this is a very rounded houses way of getting to it. I don't consider it superior to anything else. It very much depends on the instructor and to a lesser extent the style. But it's the commonalities between that and other stuff. So if you look at, like, say, traditional hikite on the hip karate punch, these days it's like people, it doesn't work in MMA. So they disregard it. It's like, well, it's not supposed to. It's not what it was for. Yeah. If I'm talking to you on the door or I'm policing or in the street, I'm not. I'm far more likely to be down here. Like, okay, my hand's down here in what would be a hikite position.
And you're closer to your weapon.
There's a lot of things like that as well. But if you then look at how boxing was at the time when karate was around,
wasn't it a little bit more like
it was all like this. So you look at some of the poses from the fighters that turned the century, not this century, the century before. I'm getting fucking old. I used to turn the century. I don't remember. We're already I'm 51 now. I'm way past the point where we're going past one century. But the actual poses, some of them were very much like empty hand out in front. I mean, even Jack Johnson, some of his early poses, he was very much like this.
Interesting.
So you got those karate-esque poses. And again, you weren't supposed to walk around like this.
So many of these are like intermediary things that people take too seriously. It's like horse stance.
Horse stance is another one. Perfect example. Yeah. Horse stance is designed to be at specific points in time. It's transitionary. Yeah. You're not supposed to count.
And you train it. You're there for like an hour because you want the mental resilience and all of the toughness that comes with it. But
all stances are transitionary. It's like same with hand positions. And this used to drive. I teach boxing as well. And a lot of people have done boxing coming like this. And the first thing I do is say, put your hands down.
Yeah.
And like, what? I said, this is not good. This is what you teach someone after 3 weeks. They're like, you put your hands here.
Yeah.
Just to get used to keeping the bloody things up.
Yeah.
But no boxer worth their salt does this. It's here.
Yeah. Well, you got to give them a bit of a target as well. And you're so much more relaxed.
It's like even the zoning of where you're going to hit. You
throw that in the seminar. That was fascinating. I never thought of it like that, but that was really cool.
Most don't.
Yeah, we'll definitely put we'll have a little thing in the.
So just little bits and pieces. And the other thing as well, if I've got my hands up here, so this is another diversion. My ADHD kicks in halfway through a lot of questions. So if I've got my hands up here and I'm jabbing, it has to drop.
Yeah.
I'm doing this, which is all arm, or I have to bring it down, which is a tell. But even worse, if I put the jab in like this one then has to kind of match with it, and your body naturally cuts itself off. It can't engage against itself equally because your body doesn't work that way.
Of course.
Try it. So put your hands like this, right?
Yeah, man.
Okay. I'll put the first hand out, and I'll try and punch over the second hand to that position, and you feel that tightness in your shoulder. It locks you down.
It feels horrible.
So your first hand comes lower. So then when you set it, your first was rolling over what's already a lower target.
Right. So that's why that nice little...
Correct. So physiologically speaking, biologically speaking, it makes more sense to do it that way. So for me, coming back to the original question, what I found from karate, my exposure to it, and again, this comes back to that lens.
Yeah.
It's not just what am I doing? Why am I doing it? I need to understand exactly why I'm doing this thing a certain way. Even if I then don't do it, at least I understand the rationale I'm rejecting.
Exactly.
And for me, that's always been important with almost everything I do. Why am I doing it? And even if I don't do it, at least it's a choice not to do it because I prefer to do it this way for these reasons.
So let's go right from, so we did karate. So then we went off to what's next in terms of the because you've gone through about how many styles at this point?
Well, I started with karate, and then I had a brief hiatus. I don't want to give spoilers away, but I got knocked dick stiff in sparring. I got absolutely sparked off a black belt called Sean.
You needed a little reset.
I was terrified.
Fuck. Okay.
Well, I was still a young kid. You know, like I've been doing it like 3 years. So like started at
17,
14,
18.
15. Yeah, I was like just at that point, and I got knocked out. It's ironic.
Was it like a
spinning heel kick? Right up the temple. Like, I was out. 1 minute I was up, next minute I was down. Ironically, didn't feel a thing.
Right.
It was clean. It was like, oh, that's just okay. And Sensei Lee, at the time, he stood me up, like back on your feet, finish the round. Sean back right off.
Okay.
Because he's like,
he knew.
Yeah, he just starched me. He put me back on my feet, and he's like, okay. But what he was trying to do was put that idea of you're not out until you're out. So I was conscious. I was just like,
not sure what's going on.
Those, you know, Tweety birds and stuff.
Legitimately.
But he put me up and made me sit. If I'd have been out, obviously it would have been different. But he's like, come on, get back on your feet. And what he was trying to instill in me, which took me a few years to recognize, was if you're down, you're not out. If you're out, you're out. You can't do anything about it. If you're not out, you keep going until you are out because it's not over until it's over. But I didn't know that at the time because I was young. And don't forget, I got into karate to get away from the frightened boy. And I got frightened again.
Yeah, getting that'll fucking do it.
He was still there. That little frightened boy was still there. And realistically, I only got rid of him a few years ago because even when I moved through all the other arts and I was training this stuff and I was trying to get all like, and you're still wanting to prove something. So I was still the frightened boy.
Yeah.
It took a long time to actually realize that, no, I'm not him anymore. I don't need to do it. So there's a little sort of personal growth piece that came from that. But you have to see what you're doing before you're, that's not good.
Yeah.
You know.
So then there's a little hiatus.
And then it was my dad actually kept me on. I took all my certificates off the wall, and because at the time when you get into it, I had whole weapons on the wall and ninja posters and all the video. If I'm in, I'm in.
And it is what was the same for you that at the time in particular. There wasn't a lot of other people. Okay, you had some good martial arts, but were you like the only one of your friends that was doing it?
I was one of about 3 people in my school that actually did it.
That's
certainly to any level.
Yeah. So you're that shit.
Oh yeah. That was me. I was Ninja John. That actually, ironically, was one of my nicknames, Ninja John.
I can see that.
So I took my certificates down almost like to pretend I hadn't done it. So that was just a chapter of my life I moved on. My dad came in one morning to wake me for school and he went, right, come on, get up. And he went, where are your certificates? And I said, I took them down. I'm not doing it anymore. I said, so I didn't see the point keeping them up. And there's certain points in life that you can look back at and say, that was one of the moments it changed. So getting beat up was one of the moments it changed.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest moments it changed. And it's and rest his soul, I owe so much to my dad. He said, okay. Well, whether you're doing it or not, you earned them.
You put the work in.
Your breakfast on the table. And he went out. And so I was like, okay, well, your dad told you to do something. I'm from a generation where, I'm not going to argue with my fucking dad. So I put them back up. And so every day I'd wake up, look up, and they were there. Yeah. And then I just started hitting the Macahuera again. And then before you know it, you're kicking the bag again. And then you kind of like getting back into it. So then when I left school and went to university, I had a chance to almost reinvent myself because no one knew what I'd done before. And I could kick, I could punch. Okay. So there was a jiu-jitsu club there. and he also did kickboxing at the side. So I did kickboxing and jiu-jitsu when I went to university. Now, it was Gendai jiu-jitsu. It wasn't like Cobra. It wasn't Brazilian jiu-jitsu. This was well before anybody had heard of the Gracie Revolution, although that actually did come through while I was at Hull. So I started doing some jiu-jitsu. Having a grounding in karate, again, that filter means I knew stance, I knew position, I knew kime, I knew all that. So the jiu-jitsu folded in quite nicely to what I was doing. It was easy to add.
You didn't, because some people really, especially if you come from such a strong striking art, to go to grappling, some people find that transition quite jarring, and it's a whole different thing. Even Joe Rogan was talking about this, that he was a real karate guy, and he went to start rolling and just got his absolute ass kicked and was like, what the fuck?
What's going on? So there is that aspect to it. Now, again, I stress the jiu-jitsu I did was much more akin to the more traditional Japanese stuff. So there was
some standing.
There was elements of groundwork to it, but it had like kind of akijitsu vibe to it as well.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, it's not so much that the techniques translate over. There are obviously commonalities. But once you know how to move your body, you can move your body. It's like if you want to get someone really, really... Like Van Damme's a good example of that. I don't care. And I still love Van Damme.
I love
Cyborg is one of my all-time guilty... I've got like 5 guilty pleasures. Cyborg's actually one of them. Roadhouse is another.
Absolutely. It's just Swayze. Are you fucking kidding?
That's a great film.
I just saw the remake the other day.
It's fine.
It's all right.
I've seen it.
I like how they were different enough.
It was different.
I actually like Conor McGregor. I thought Conor McGregor played hilarious.
He was great. He was great. That swagger, it was great. Yeah.
Everything else in that movie, I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
It was so far removed from Roadhouse, it didn't need to be called Roadhouse.
Exactly. It's just kind of something a little different.
Just a successful business.
Yeah, I know. That's it.
That guy just wanted to build up himself.
I know.
Whereas in the first one, it was like a drop.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the first one, he was like the small town, and he was corrupt and owned it.
Yeah,
That's right.
Wesley.
Yeah. He had to stand up to the man. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it made sense. This didn't. It's like it's in the Florida Keys. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a little backwater hit town.
So in Molten Midlands.
It's like, hang on a minute, the sheriff's corrupt. Well, he is, but the fucking feds aren't, Well, actually, I take it back. They probably you know what I mean? I'm in principle within the film universe.
Jake Gyllenhaal to solve the problem.
Okay, yeah, this MMA fighter is like, just shoot the cunt. Do you know what I mean? It's like
there are easier ways.
Exactly. That's actually one of the reasons in Enter the Dragon. Bruce Lee always identified back in the 70s. Bruce Lee saw this as a genre problem.
Explain.
Well, if you do martial arts films, Bruce Lee's films are some of the few films from the 70s that his action still stands up.
Oh, fuck. It's incredible.
Boy, does it, I actually, when I was at university, I did a 35-minute presentation on the fight scene between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris.
Really?
And I had to halve it.
Only 35. I
had to halve it.
That is.
I couldn't on what an incredible that whole fight scene. I went on about it and like the aspects of and I drew in comparisons between the Iliad. So if you look at the Iliad, Achilles, who's the main character, doesn't actually come in until the end of the book. He has to Patroclus, not Patroclus. Shit. Anyway, he loses his friend, and that's what brings him back to battle. So he has to be forced to fight. Now, Bruce Lee has to be forced to put in his position before he does anything, and so then it's just the big conflict. So I'm bringing
that's fantastic.
All the classical stuff in and stuff like that as well. But even in that, he made wooden darts in film to throw in the hands to get rid of people with guns. And he did the same thing in Enter the Dragon.
Right.
If you remember at the beginning, he goes, guns, why doesn't someone pull out a 45 and settle it?
Classic.
My Bruce Lee impression. Because they said, no guns. Hands fearful of guns. He had an accident with them. So they're banned from the island. Great. Now you've removed that problem.
And now you can.
So he sets the rules in his universe. Then he can operate within those rules. So Bruce was smart.
No.
Bruce was really smart.
We're going to talk a lot about Bruce later, but yeah.
But anyway, so I don't even know how we got on this. Sports. So if you've got an ability to, where your body is relative to itself, if you're a runner, you're a swimmer, you're a dancer, whatever, you can then just teach the body to be in a, okay. So you're learning a new skill. So yeah, that's hard compared to what you've done. But your ability to pick it up and plug it into your existing skill set, that's what makes you, that's why you can take, NFL football players and make good MMA athletes
in like 3 years. Yeah,
is it Mitrione? Matt Mitrione? We see the big.
There's a few. Yeah,
there's a few like you put them in there. They because they got such a big background, they're big strong bastards.
Yeah.
Okay. you know,
they're used to the sprint as well.
yeah, exactly. So they got certain characteristics that they're already athletic. So you just give them a skill set that they plug into their attributes, and that's why you pick it up quicker.
Is that one of my favorite things about coaching is being able to, again, I was working with Coral this morning, and she's a soccer player.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got these just really strong ass legs, great footwork, and it's just so much fun to
And cardio forever.
forever, exactly. And it's so much fun to be able to like just take these other skills. I mean, has that been, for coaching perspective, is that part of what's fun for you?
I do like doing that, actually. There's so many, I like people that have a hard time lifting up their spoon from the soup and getting them to do something that's like, you know, taken from something like that. I also like tweaking people that do something and showing them a different way of looking at it. Not better, just different.
Yeah.
And then seeing, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. And yeah, taking someone that has a natural ability and then really polishing that up.
Yeah.
We had a kid come in our school, and you know, there's just some kids that are just natural scrappers.
Fuck yes. I'm training one right now, man. This is just
well, this is a young kid. He's like 8 or 9. But
wow.
No, yeah.
Okay.
But his fight instincts are just really finely honed. His timing.
Wow.
He's got about 4. He can do lots of stuff, but he's got about 3 or 4 things he does really, really well. One of which is a back knuckle.
Jesus.
And he can almost fire it at will. Just like, well, he just scores it like that. His timing's phenomenal. And I don't think he's ever done any other sports. He just has a natural fight instinct.
Some people.
So some people just do. So I don't know. Different rewards from different things.
Yeah.
Like I work with autistic children.
Wow.
And I do programs for those. Now for them, they're some, depending on the level of the spectrum, but I got some which are non-communicative.
Yeah.
Just to get them to do something. Like get in touch with their body a little bit more, like break a board or, you know, get their leg above their waist. Things like that are just massively rewarding. I'm actually working on a program for boxing for people with Parkinson's.
Oh, Jesus.
Which has been shown to have an effect on their body like nothing else that they've actually found. It's, you know,
it's the brain and the body working
correct.
together, right?
But apparently it's very unique to boxing. They've tried it with other sports, other disciplines. There's something about boxing. I'm guessing because it's simple, not easy, but simple. It's just left, right, up, down, around, straight. So it's a lot. They're able to process it a little better, and it puts the connections in place. So I find gratification in so many different aspects of it. It's hard to say one more than the other. Well, if you give me an athlete to work with, absolutely, I'll work with him. But I've had one guy. Oh, he's a lovely fella, actually. He came with his daughter, and he was Eastern European Special Forces, ex-Special Forces. And he was a nice guy. You know, there's always the one guy that show me. And it's like,
you want to be nice.
And there's some come in and test around. I've had a few stories about that over the years as well, actually. But he would go in and you put him in a move, and he was like, could I do this? Mm-hmm. And he's not being a dick about it. Because his mindset is like, you know, does this work? And you're like, well, you could do that, but if you do that, I'm going to do this. And it's like, oh, fair enough. And it was like every class, he's like, well, I'm going to do this now. And I was like, see my thumb in your eye? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, you can do it. I can too. So all these cheats that people come out with, like, well, I would just bite. It's like, okay, if I'm already in a dominant position and you bite me, it's like, okay, it's that kind of fight, is it?
Don't headbutts start coming.
Oh, mine coming anyway.
It's my favorite.
You can take the boy out of Manchester. But it's like, I know the rules, but I also know where the rules stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit, you know,
if you're setting those rules, if you're changing the rules of engagement.
Jesse Glover, there's two quotes I often throw out. Jesse Glover, who was Bruce Lee's first student in the US, ridiculously good fighter in his own right as well, like mentally tough. And he used to say, let me know where you want to go and I'll meet you there. Which was...
That's a terrifying statement.
It really is. When you actually dissect that down, it's like, just let me know how far we're going.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm good to go wherever.
Good to go. Just let me know where we're at. Which just gives that kind of shivers. And the other one is Rickson Gracie. And he once said to someone, what's the difference between a street fight and a tournament fight? And it was like, everyone was like coming up with all these rules and all this. And Rickson's there. He said, no. Well, what about, in a street? No. And okay, what's the difference? He said, in a tournament fight, I'll stop when the referee tells me. In a street fight, I'll stop when I feel like it. And that was...
Sir.
Oh, it's like pearls of wisdom from Mr. Tracy.
That's ridiculous.
But it's true when you think about it. Because even like I did a breakdown. You're okay if we wander all over the place. I forgot.
Oh fuck! This is exactly how
I
you go.
forgot what the original question was.
No. You answered it. We're going.
Oh, well gone. There was a video that's doing the rounds, and I actually did a breakdown on it for my instructors. I have weekly instructor meetings with my online crew, and it was the Ukrainian soldier versus the Russian soldier.
Oh, you mentioned this.
We're going on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So evening light boys, if you look at it, again, there's one saying as a self-defense instructor, because I teach martial arts, I teach empowerment, I teach self-protection. I don't like the word self-defense, I teach self-protection. And you'll hear a lot of people cast their beliefs, opinions on situations without knowing what they are.
They don't have the context.
They don't, yeah, but they've been told or they believe it. Like, training for the ring is one thing, I train for the streets. Well, it's all right, motherfucker. You're training like twice a week for an hour, whereas these guys are training 5 days a week for 3 hours a day. Which one of you is better? Do you know what I mean?
I'm
so
my money.
I know, yeah. If you got a sport fighter and a self-defense fighter, by and large, put the farm on the sports fighter.
Yeah. There
are a couple of exceptions to that, and we'll get on to it. I think it was actually Chris Houter, who was one of the first BJJ black belts in the States, actually said, practice art, train sport, think straight.
So I have that written down, and I was one of the things I was going to ask you is where you got that from, because that has been a mantra for me since I heard it. Because you talked about it on.
I'm pretty sure it's Chris Houter. So if it's not Chris, I apologize.
Okay.
To whoever did say it, but I'm almost sure it was him that actually said it. And
because let's delve into that a little bit, because that to me summarizes like decades worth of training for me. I've tried to explain this to people, but this is the most concise that I've
loved it.
Put.
And I wish I could claim it as mine. It's so profound. I was like, I would like that to be my legacy piece, but it's not. And when I mention it, everyone's like, oh my God, that's, and I have to very quickly say, not my saying.
Okay.
I stole it or I borrowed it.
Respect and appreciate that.
But you have to. But it's absolutely true. So think street. The worst thing to say is that there's no rules in a street fight. Horse shit. They're called laws. So, you know what I mean? And you ignore them at your pace. So if you look at an MMA fight, and we'll use that as a microcosm.
Perfect.
There are an agreed set of protocols. One guy with the weight classes are the same. The skill sets theoretically are the same.
Ideally.
A little variance between, but like you don't see a world level fighter against a non-bouter, for example, or you shouldn't. You've got an engaged, you all know the rules. The referee's there to enforce the rules. There's an agreement that you'll let go when you tap, although some of the Brazilians don't.
Oh, man,
like
Pequeño.
Yeah.
That too. Anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, so you got all these things. If you break the rules, you can break the rules. I can put a dick shot in. I can put an eye poke in. I can
cage grab
a little look and all this sort of stuff. So you can choose to break the rules, but there is a consequence for doing so.
Of course.
What's the difference between that and the cobbles? Outside of the potential consequences for breaking a chair on someone's head versus just fish hooking them. So in the street, let's say we've got a one-on-one fight, we're going to go at it on the cobbles. Now, there's two people who've agreed we're going to go at it. We don't know the matches, skill sets, okay. We don't know the size differentials, okay, but they're going to go at it and fight. You still have to make a decision to go past what you're legally allowed to do. Now, granted, there's not always a referee or a policeman in this instance to be around to stop you. Sometimes there's a crowd of bystanders, sometimes there isn't. But it's still a conscious decision in yourself. Am I willing to transgress here? And can I eat the consequences afterwards? Am I willing to live with those consequences, both on a personal level and a legal level? And there are three aspects to every decision making. There's the legal, the ethical, and the moral implications of things. Now, legal stands on its own. It's the law.
Yeah.
It's what you're allowed and permitted to do. The morals is your own personal values. The ethicals is where it gets a little bit cloudy. Ethics and morals, people say the same thing. I don't think they are, and I use this distinction. Morals are personal to me. Ethics are governed by the group of people you're around with at the time.
Yeah.
So you talk about the ethics of the medical profession, or the ethics of being a lawyer, or the ethics of being, call it whatever, a nursery school teacher and things like that as well.
And there's going to change, obviously, there's different...
100%. Now, I can adhere to my own moral code and breach the code of ethics of being a doctor. I can be...
And vice versa.
Correctly. I can obey the law and obey the ethics, but breach my own moral code. I can be morally and ethically
Good
in accordance and break the law.
Yeah.
I can break the law, break the ethics, but adhere to my morals. If you think of like conscientious objectors, the wars, or you look at Rosa Parks, broke the law, broke the ethics, adhere to a moral standards.
Of course.
So the reason I separate them that way is because these are the decision-making factors you have to bring in. Now, if you're in compliance with legal, ethical, and moral, your action's probably good.
Yeah.
If you're only in compliance with two of them, there should be a consideration process that goes in. If you're in compliance with none of them, you really should not do that.
Probably a good idea.
But yeah, exactly. But at some point, you have to weigh where your lines are. And the Ukrainian-Russian footage is fascinating because it's in, theoretically, outside of the Geneva Convention, an unregulated zone. It's a gunfight. They're at a distance, and it's a range fight. They start off like, they're popping at each other like that.
Jesus.
Then they get close to the building, round the corner. Next thing you know, the guns are pulled down. They're on the floor resting. They're doing jiu-jitsu. The knives are out, and it becomes a knife fight. And this is all live on camera. There are actually body cameras watching this fight going on.
Like a fight to
and there's biting going in, and there's eyes going in at the end of it. And then the knife goes in, and he ends up actually... the Russian, when he described the interview afterwards, he said he had the knife of the Ukrainian guy was at his neck, and the Russian was trying to get his in. He said, I'm trying to get the knife off. He said, why? He bit him. Then he got the knife in his eye, and then he got the knife in the neck and whooped it. And the Ukrainian then said, you've opened me up. It hurts. Can you leave me be? And the Russian was like, okay. And just sort of sat there, both breathing while he's lying there. And he's going, goodbye, mother. He says, can you leave me alone, please? And the Russian was like, and he said, don't touch me. Can you just let me die alone? And the Russian was like, okay. And he got up. And then the Ukrainian says, you were the best fighter. And the Russian just nodded, got up and walked off. Now, even at the most extreme, with the consequences literally being life or death, and there's no tapping out, there's no giving up, there's no quarter asked. Even at the end, when it came out, there was an agreement between these. Exactly. Between these two guys. He's so powerful.
Wow.
Goosebumps.
Seriously.
It's such a powerful bit of footage. And again, all these things like, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, you don't go to the ground in a real fight. It's like, well, the knife beat the gun, the ground beat the knife, and all these things come in. So all these myths, they get perpetuated on a macrocosmic level. Well, not myths, they're just general guidelines. They all fail at the micro.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah.
So...
Which is why you need the three aspects, right? Which is why you can't just think street. You need to have the other components.
You need to have the other things as well. I can think street all I want. If I can't do anything about it, it's just mental onanism.
Right.
And it's the same. If I train on the bags and the pads and things all the time, but I've never stepped into the ring or sparred against a resistance opponent, I've got the skill, I've got no ability to deliver it.
You have no...
You can have a gun with no bullet and a bullet with no gun.
Right.
Right. You need to have them both together in order to get that on target. And then, not only that, you have to have the ability to put the gun on target and the mental capacity to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
If you remove any one of those...
training.
Yep. Correct. And it also takes a leap. Mm-hmm. Most people are not willing to kill.
Yeah.
It's a very, very... Everyone says they are. Everyone says they're willing to fight until they're in a fight.
Yeah.
And like with Tyson, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. No plan survives contact with the enemy and all that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
Literally the same concept and principle. And I think Carlson Gracie in jiu-jitsu said, if you take a black belt and punch him in the face, he becomes a black belt. Punch him again, he's I love it. But and it's not like literally like, bang, and my skills fall off. It's more to do with the fact that once you're in a combative mindset, it won't take much to deteriorate to a primal state.
Yeah.
It does not take much to take you down to that primal state. Fatigue and fear,
pain,
and adrenaline, and pain, and all these ingredients come in.
Yeah.
And you have to be laser focused at all time. If you look at a lot of the works from back in the day, the Tai Chi classics or Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai.
Oh, okay.
If you've ever read that one, there's always little quotes in it. Like from a Hagakure, one of the quotes is, "If a samurai is making his stroke, even if he should be beheaded, it will find its mark." The idea being that you're so focused on what you're doing, nothing will stop you achieving that goal. This is why these become business books and the business leaders use in their day-to-day life.
Of course.
What's our quarter like? You're doing well, sir. It's like, but it's...
So why why is this such a? Because I mean, I've trained in a bunch of different styles, and I find that I've come across a lot of resistance when I try to talk about this. I mean, my JKD coach, again, he trained RCMP. He was a police officer himself, and we trained very, very practically. And he instilled a lot of this in us. But in a lot of other situations, it seems like people want to be in one of these other camps. Why is it so difficult for people to see, in your opinion, that we need all three?
And they don't know. One.
Okay.
So if you don't know, you stick with what you know.
Oh,
Very few people are willing to admit they don't know.
very fair.
So if you don't know, you'll either find it out or you'll pretend you don't need it. The other thing is most people want, again, it comes from, in my case, the frightened little boy. And most of the martial arts were basically we're nerds. Let's be honest. Most martial artists are nerds in some way, shape, or form. And you can go great to lesser extents the level of your nerddom. But there's an unfortunate belief that martial arts or competency, not just martial arts, but competency in one field instantly means you're competent in all fields.
Fuck.
That's why celebrities offer opinions and things, or
you're a doctor, so let's weigh in on politics.
Exactly, which is it's the fallacy of appeal to authority. I'm a doctor, therefore you should listen to me on politics.
Yeah.
The individual that knows what they know, but equally knows what they don't know, is a rare beast indeed.
Socrates.
Yeah, one of my good friends, Brad Cardinal, is a jiu-jitsu ex-MMA fighter, who's king of the cage middleweight champion.
Jesus.
I met him when he was a doorman downtown. That's how we got to know each other. I was police, he was door. And we got a mutual friend that we both train in private lessons.
Very cool.
And Brad actually sent him to me because this guy goes a lot back and forth with the States. He's a concealed carry guy.
Wow. Okay.
And he wanted to learn weapon deployment, how to use a firearm, how to defend against, other weapons and things like that. And Brad, this is why I love Brad so much. He said, well, I can show you what I know, but it's not my wheelhouse. But I know a guy that does that sort of stuff. So he sent them to me.
Yeah.
Now, I've done the same thing. Someone will say, I want to learn Muay Thai. It's like, well, I know Muay Thai, but it's not my thing. These are the guys I'd suggest you go to.
Of course.
Even with the jiu-jitsu and the grappling that I teach jiu-jitsu and catch wrestling, but I don't teach it for a competitive perspective. For me, it's more about the completeness and the combative aspects. So I say
wrestling's the best grappling art.
And I will say I can teach you it, but if you want to compete,
different thing.
This isn't the gym. These are the gyms I recommend. So I'll give you stuff you can go away with and play with.
Yeah.
But I don't compete in that sense.
I do the same thing. Anyone who really wants to compete, I send them to Champions Create. Generally speaking,
correct,
they have such a good program.
Yeah, because you it's no good me saying I can do that.
Yeah.
You can to a point, but you're not giving them.
They're going to do so much better.
100%, because they want a very specific thing.
Exactly.
So this is one of the biggest problems with it, is people don't look at it in this because A, they've never thought about it, B, they don't know it, and C, they don't want to send anybody elsewhere because they're insecure.
And that's because we are talking about train sport. When you're talking about the sport, the practice, and the street, these are very different, broad.
100%. It's a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
So there's little points where they overlap.
Yeah, but they're very different.
They're very, very different.
Yeah.
You name me one MMA fighter these days that tends to have one coach at any level. They have a boxing coach, they have a jiu-jitsu coach, they have a wrestling coach, they have a kickboxing coach, they have a nutritionist, they have a conditioning coach, they have a yoga coach, they have a mindset. So you've got a team to make one fighter.
Yeah. And that's, okay.
You don't really get many people taking that approach these days.
Yeah.
They always want the one-stop shop.
Of course they do.
Which is fine when you're doing it as a hobbyist. But if you actually look at what the good guys do, and you want to get good, copy what they do. Or at least look at their modeling and see if there's anything you can fit within your own lifestyle for it. So a lot of it's just an ego thing. And MMA guys especially, like, the Playground Wars for me was ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64. Then it was Nintendo and Sega.
Of course.
Then it was 360 and PS3. Then it was PS4. But it's like, these days, most people are at least smart enough to try and own one of each console.
Right.
Or they pick one and they know, it's fine on both. You don't get that same tribalism, except in the retro communities where we still argue about which is the best computer.
Sega versus Nintendo, man. That was a huge argument back in the day.
In America, Nintendo won the war by a mile.
Yeah.
In Japan, it was a little closer. And in England,
Sega won, didn't. I think Sega won.
Sega won in Japan a little bit out, but in England, Sega won as well.
Interesting.
It's weird. And like everywhere else in the world, the Commodore 64 was the best-selling 8-bit computer, except in England. We had the Spectrum because it was ours.
Wow.
I mean, objectively, it's the best computer ever. That's not true.
There's nothing to fucking touch that.
Absolutely not true.
Okay, so I mean, part of the reason that people send people to you, and because you really do have this street. So you were a police officer for 11 years in the UK.
11 years in the UK. No, I did 9 in the UK, 11 out here.
And 11 down here. Okay,
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind. First of all, what was the training like for you in the UK, just getting into being a police officer?
It is all right. The UK, we have individual forces or services, sorry.
So like teams, different
Different areas. So like you'd have Manchester Police, Kent Police, which is the one I started in, Sussex Police, the Met, British Transport Police. It's different constabularies. And there were training centres. England, the whole training is nationalised.
Okay.
So it's a standard called Centrex. So even more so these days. So it's like every police officer in England goes through the same training.
That's good.
When they go back to their individual
Communities,
constabularies and areas, there are certain things, there's a certain level of autonomy that the areas have. But even that is within, there's an attempt to standardize policing. One of the biggest differences is like when I was in Canada, I was sworn as an officer in Alberta. I lost my powers the second I crossed the border.
Oh, yeah.
In England, we have counties. I'm countrywide. I can go anywhere.
Oh, fantastic.
And I maintain my powers as an officer. So the training, you go in and you do the law input, you do the ethics input, and all the bits and pieces like that. You got your training framework.
Is it about 6 months?
In England, we did differently. So we did 6 months. Then you went back for a few months on the street. Then you came back. Then you went back to the streets. Then you came back to it. Really is, because it's like, here's your basic. Then we put you out with someone,
get some
to sharpen your teeth.
Yeah.
Then we bring you back in to top it up. Then you go out, and then Canada, you do your 6 months and you're off.
That's it.
Off you go.
That's it. I'm literally just training someone who's actually called Jay, who just
I like him already.
Yeah, he's great dude. He just finished his training and is just training with us to try to supplement.
Most of the police training, leaving aside the law inputs, which is its own thing, the physical training is frankly piss poor.
Because that's what got me into this. Like, I've written 2 papers about this, and obviously I wasn't talking about the UK. I was just talking about Canada.
It's about the same.
It's fucking atrocious.
It's about the same. Canada's better.
A little bit more.
A little bit.
I think this is one of the huge issues that I can see in terms of, with the Black Lives Matter and defund police and all this crap that was going on for a long time. It's like people's expectations. People think that police officers are all getting this like SWAT level training where they're like, they're coming.
It's like 6 weeks.
It's even worse. It's definitely worse in the States. No. It's horrendous. It's even worse in the States. But
depends on the departments. But yeah, you're not far off. It's not
scary. It's scary. But yeah. And then so people think that you're getting all of this training, and in reality, you're getting such minimal training. I mean, like especially even after that initial, the follow up, like the continual training, the upgrade training, it's just almost non-existent.
Okay, so I'll speak specifically without getting too specific.
Please.
Allegedly. Sorry, should I say allegedly? Anything else?
Catch all.
If I give you a Nerf gun and say, right, this is your Nerf gun, you've got to keep peace with your Nerf gun, and all you can use is your Nerf gun. And you go in there and you try and keep peace with your Nerf gun, it doesn't work, and you go, okay, fuck it, and you pick up a chair and hit someone with it.
Okay.
I can then say, well, I told him to use a Nerf gun, it's not my fault, so now he's on his own.
Oh, fuck.
Do you see? That's the simplest analogy I can actually put in there now.
Powerful, yeah.
So when you look at what they're doing, and there's things like PPCT, pressure point control tactics, like that, it doesn't work as long as you've got a hole in your fucking ass. But they can say they've given it to you.
Of course.
Now, interestingly enough, when the UK was looking at adapting combative systems for police services and things, because back then a stiff tone of voice and a cuff round the ear was about it.
Yeah.
If someone goes in your face, give me a fucking clip. There was no real formal training or anything like that. And it's like, so to an extent, it's actually got better over the years because at least there is some input.
Okay.
Well, they looked at adopting Taiho Jitsu, which was a Japanese way of doing things, and all the wrist locks and all of them. And what they found is people were trying to use this on the street and getting absolutely pagged. And they were like, okay, something's gone wrong. So they went back to Japan.
Yeah.
And they were saying, we're having a hard time making these wrist locks work.
What are you guys doing?
Can you show us again an idea of how to do it? And the Japanese guy went, absolutely no problem. When the guy went like, then he put the wrist lock on him. And they said, we can't do that. And he said, well, that's your problem.
Yeah.
It's like the wrist lock comes on after I've got you in a position where the wrist lock's going to happen. You don't go straight to the end piece.
Yeah.
But this also comes back to something one of my teachers, Professor James Hunden, he was actually one of Wally J. Well, not one of, he is Wally J's top disciple, in my opinion. And he does small circle jiu-jitsu. And he'll do a lot of really funky things with finger locks, which they look magical. And a lot of people are saying this is bullshit or this wouldn't work in a real fight. And it's like, yeah, I believe it when you say you can't make it work in a real fight. Now, Professor can box. He's got fists like anvils. I know I've been on the end of them. But he can box. So for him, he can do the gross stuff.
And then
you add the finest. You start, it's like a murder scene. You start big and you reduce it down. You don't just draw a circle around the body. You don't. You go as big as you can. And as you actually hone down where it took place, you bring it in. It's the same martial arts. You look at an art like Aikido. Most people don't know that Kano, the founder of judo, used to send his black belts to Shiba for finishing.
Oh, fascinating.
You can now fight. Okay, now go and learn to get good. And he'd actually send him to a Shiba for finishing. You needed something fundamental in place before you could then have to find the stuff. Wing Chun is actually a graduate system. People say it's simplified. It's not. You have to fight first before any of this makes any sense to you. So
sensitivity is so
big time. But you look at an art like Krav Maga. I mean, I'm notorious for slagging off Krav Maga. There's two arts I tend to rag on a lot. Krav Maga is semi-jokingly. Systema, it's not. I hate that.
Sure.
Shit stain, man. But Krav Maga, you had all these guys that were like top, actually good boxer, good kickboxer, good judo guy, and let's mix our knowledge in the pot, and you put it together and let's get it. Ultimate system. Fan-fucking-tastic. But you can't get someone to the ultimate system without going through the other bits that give you the attributes to make the system work.
Yeah.
Mr. Olympia's routine that won him Mr. Olympia this year at bodybuilding, that's the routine that got him that title. If I did that, I'd be on traction. Because I haven't gone through the prerequisites for that routine to actually mean anything for me. So it's the same with martial arts. When you do the final point, you have to be able to do the stuff which gets you to that point.
But you're not getting trained to do that.
No. So they just jump you to the end.
Yeah.
And I might not choose to, you know what I'm saying? So in policing, they give you a very gestalt sort of insipid, do this, it might work, it might not. Try not to kill anyone. Off you go. That's very, very loosely described what it is. And then the problem with that is, even something as simple as a straight armbar takedown.
Yeah.
The police teach it wrong. Still.
That's painful.
They still teach it wrong. There's one, so get me wrong.
Yeah.
What they do is they teach you go in, you roll, and you walk towards a person.
Sure.
And they headbutt the microphone.
Of course.
Okay, but now if you just push back against me, I ain't controlling that.
Yeah.
So even if my body weight's in, this is now a fight.
Yeah.
So if I just take my fingers and go like that,
yep.
All I need to do is extend you by that much, and that arm bar is now on.
Yeah.
That adjustment is pull the arm out. That's it.
But it makes every fucking difference.
I'm now taking you down versus I'm fucking fighting, that sort of thing as well. But these are little things I always used to say that you can't not do this. Well, that's not how we teach it. So I don't give a shit how you teach it. This is how it works. So I used to get a lot of arguments. In the UK, worse than in Canada. In Canada, their approach is, look, we're going to give, if you've already done something, you're going to do that anyway.
Okay.
Do it within these confines of legality.
Okay,
so at least they recognize existing skill sets. What they then do is give you something which you don't have an existing skill set. Try and do this.
Okay.
Now, I still don't agree with it because I still think we don't really have a lot of time to teach you. Then make it.
Right. See, that's
you know what I'm saying? It's like we don't have a lot of time. Make time. One of my teachers gets us to meditate. We meditate for 15 minutes every day. We just do standing meditation.
Sure.
No matter anything else we do 15 minutes every day. And he said, if you can't find 15 minutes, find 20.
Yeah.
And that was what he said, if you can't find 15 minutes, you are burning out. 100%. So and it's the same. If you can't find training for physical, if we can't find 10 hours for physical training, find 20. Because there's something very, very wrong going on here. Now, there was an incident locally with a Calgary police officer involving a takedown in cells on a prisoner. I actually did a breakdown on what he did for a hearing committee up there. They don't want to hear it. because they don't want to hear that because it was a straight armbar takedown was an example of what it was, and that's why I use that example.
Yeah.
He did that in the academy, and you refresh once, twice a year in CPS, maybe. He's used about once a year, maybe. But you don't refresh on everything.
Yeah.
They have a theme.
So you
this year,
one aspect, you'll do like one.
Not even that. This year is taser. So you do cuffing and taser that year. The year after it might be LVNR, lateral vascular neck restraint, and cuffing. We always put the cuffing in there because you always got to do the cuffing. But the thing is, right, of all the things you do, the most perishable skill is anything physical.
Of course.
A fact is always there that will tend to get recalled if you give them sufficient time.
But you need that muscle memory to be able to
100% you do. You name me any, and there's no exception to this. There is no physical endeavor which gets better when you do less of it.
Oh.
In terms,
like we need rest, obviously.
Correct. In terms of the actual skill, I'll qualify that.
Sure. Just every folk. Rest, especially as we get older, rest is very important.
But rest is actually part of the process. So rest is a skill.
Agreed. And resting is a skill.
Resting is a skill. I eat the furniture. Why I do 8-bit gaming?
I just smoke a lot of weed. There we go.
You are that sort of MMA.
All that is mad.
But even something as simple, and I use, this is not technically, this is a very loose guideline I give to my guys. However many years you've been training, that's how many months you can miss before you're back to zero skill-wise.
I love it. Yeah.
You train a year, you can miss a month.
2
years, you can miss 2 months. It's still not true.
But it gets in the ballpark.
Correct.
Right?
It's kind of an illustration principle on it. And it's not that you forget everything. It's just that your skills, your skill is always like your special move meter in a video game.
Yeah.
It's always going down. You have to keep the bugger back up again and things like that. And it's the same with any skill. It's why a boxer, if they've not been in the ring for a while, needs to spar.
Of course.
They need to get the ring rust off, the timing. I can get back in. I spar loosely a lot with guys.
Yeah.
But if I was to compete, I would have to isolate myself for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
I couldn't just, and so why policing believes that you can train once a year on an unrelated subject
and apply perfectly
and say, yeah, you're good. But they can say, well, we trained them. If they did it wrong, it's on them now, which to me is not only disingenuous to the officer, it's disingenuous to the public which the officer is trying to serve.
Of course.
So you could do, not telling me that they couldn't find, even twice a month.
Yeah.
On an early shift, or assign a shift twice a month where you rotate it in. You're up at the skills center. Or give them have a list of approved schools. These are CPS approved schools. Oh, sorry, name Calgary. No, fuck it, I don't care.
See, it's just fine.
Come at me.
CPS.
You got a list. These are the schools that you can go to which cover the syllabus.
Yeah.
Go there in your spare time. We'll give you a stipend, or we'll give you there's a million ways they can do it, as opposed to the absolute bullshit approach that they've got. And frankly, it is terrible. You've got a guy there giving testimony about use of force expertise because he's done these 2-day tick box courses that the police do. And it's like, well, he's done all these courses, so he knows what he's talking about. No, he doesn't. He's done all these hours. Horse shit. Okay, I've been doing martial arts, physical combative, psychology of combat, adrenaline combat, the whole thing, legal, ethical, moral implications. I've been lecturing on it internationally. I've been doing all this for over 37 years.
Yeah. That's what you need.
Some dillweed goes away on a weekend course. Technically, he's more qualified than me in their eyes. Bollocks.
Absolutely.
And this is the other thing as well. When you start to go into things like OODA loops and the shortages, observe, orient, decide, act, which was actually from the Korean War.
Okay.
He was a guy in the Korean War. John Boyd, I think his name was. I'm probably wrong on that. Fact check me. And he determined that the fighter pilots that could observe a situation, orient themselves relative to it, make a decision and act on it. Whoever could do that decision making loop quickest would prevail in a dogfight. So OODA loop became like a loose description for how you do things. You observe, you orient, decide, act. And so the more you do something, the quicker you can actually go through that loop. The more options you have, the quicker you can go through that loop. The more experience you have, the quicker you can go through that loop. So the idea is you add these to these decision making protocols. So my point is, if you've got an officer that's got one move, and you give them one of the reference points for that, they're going to go straight to that move.
Yeah. If he has 10 moves.
If he's got 10 moves, he can actually go cycle through. Which again, then you've got the logjam problem. The Spartans used to say, the fox knows many ways to escape the hunt, the hedgehog but one.
Okay.
Which is also a fable. Like, there was the cat and the fox who were once discussing about how they get away from a pack of dogs. And the cat says, well, I'll run up a tree.
Yeah.
And the fox says, is that it? He goes, that's all I know. He goes, I can dig a hole. I can go through a river. I can do it. And he listed all these ways. And the cat was like, fucking hell. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And it's at that moment, all dogs came over the hill and the cat went, oh, fuck, and the fox was like, that's real. I did Aesop no justice with that. Thank goodness he's dead. He'd be suing me otherwise.
Isn't that an Aesop tale, I think?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Like I said, thankfully he's dead because I've absolutely butchered that.
I got it.
It was John Boyd.
It was John Boyd.
And, fascinating, that is who Maverick from Top Gun is based on.
Oh, fuck, no way.
So,
holy shit.
So that's the OODA principle. Now, again, most people, I not only teach OODA with my guys, I teach them how to short circuit and bypass OODA, and I also teach them how to put someone in an OODA loop so they're just cycling through when you can smack them while thinking about it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of psychology and things you can actually manipulate, but again, they don't want to hear that. What they want to do is, you did this, that was wrong, we want to punish you. Period. Because they're not, otherwise they have to admit there's flaws in their training. There's flaws in their methodology. There's flaws in their approach. And the second you introduce one flaw at one level, other people that then suffered as a result of those flaws can then go back through it. So they're worried about the litigious nature of society. Okay, at some point you're going to have to eat shit on that if you want to get better.
Is that part of why I opened the gym? Part of my longer term goals, obviously I'm still getting started, but is I want to try to help change legislation when it comes to this stuff. I want part of my gym to be, hopefully the ideal was that I'll have one of my locations that is just set aside for just training first responders, like all the police, nurses, firefighters, EMT, all of them.
Nurses, EMT, firefighters, you generally get a little more buy-in from them, although for them the requirements just,
a little bit lower.
Not necessarily lower, but it's just less frequent. They're not, generally, if firefighters gave you a ticket every time they put a fire out, they wouldn't be popular.
Right.
But they know, they turn up, fires out, there's a hero, something fucking. And then we turn up and say, right, who did that? Fucking police. But police are notoriously resistant to change. They hate two things: changing the way things are.
At all.
And the other problem with policing is that there tends to be an attitude of us versus them with it. Now, again, it acts like I was just like Zen monk going through no, I fucked up a lot.
Sure.
It took me a long time to get to these thought processes. It's only when you look back, you're like, that was kind of dumb. And again, I tell a lot of those stories in my book. But policing is resistant to change. They will spend, and the police officers themselves have to take an ownership of this too. If the organization isn't giving you what you need, you have to find that elsewhere. That isn't CrossFit 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, I'm training for the fight, and it's like protein shakes and CrossFit. And these guys are in absolutely killer shape. I'll fuck them up inside 10 seconds without even batting an eyelid.
That's it.
And it's nothing to do with them in shape. I'm 50, one of the bits are falling off me now.
You're looking great.
But I can fucking go.
Yeah.
I can still go to this day because I've got not only the skill set, it's not new to me. I've been there lots. And I've also got my decision protocol in place. And this is where a lot of it falls short of. You can have all the skills, all the fitness and everything else. If you've got no engagement protocols, you've got no reference points, you don't know where your start is. And so again, you're the fox. You can have 10 responses as a fox if you know when to do those 10 responses. The first thing I started with when I joined the police, and I did this back in England, I created my own mantra for it, my own training methodology, and I actually still teach it. And this is where I will kill you.
That's the line.
This is my kill line.
Right.
Everything else under here goes in levels. So I ladder up to when I will kill you.
Right.
Because I know where my kill line is. If we hit here,
you know you're
dead.
Or
I do the necessary because this is where my kill line is. Then you come to a line below it, and you know when you're getting close to your kill line. So and then you get the line below that, and the line below that, and the line below that. So you ladder down your lines in the sand. Now, you're going to come in situations which you can't factor in, but they will fall between your points.
Because this is, again, I have a background in psychology, and this is something that I don't think people realize is you have, again, you're working these 10, 12-hour shifts. You have a call 3 hours into your shift. It's a difficult call. There's an altercation. Things happen. You do the call perfectly. You do exactly. You stay in your range. But all the drugs and everything they go through, it's not just adrenaline. There's all these other drugs are still going through. It takes a good, sometimes depending on the person, but 6 to 8 hours for your brain to come back into its normal state. So then you have another incident 6 hours later. Your brain has not reset to its normal state. And you don't react in as well because you're not in that right state. Now, as you say, like someone who has a lot of training, someone who is putting in those 2-3 training shifts a week, they're coming into this more relaxed to start. They aren't hitting that. They just aren't getting as stressed. They're not as fearful, so they don't get that same kind of brain dump, and they're just able to move through those situations so much better. Like what I'm saying is, like, the police officers need this kind of training. Like, it's what you guys do is so difficult, in particular because of the accumulative effects. It's not like they can do the great job. You can do these things perfectly every time, but like after weeks and months of this,
even on a daily level, you know what? This cop pulled me over. He was an arsehole. He was so rude and so snappy. You were the 16th people.
That's what I'm saying.
You were the 16th person who dealt with that day, and you caught him when he was full.
That's what I'm saying.
You got a car. And you've got the red.
Yeah.
Okay. Every time you rev, the needle goes. But it doesn't go like that. It goes. You're revving throughout the day.
That's it.
You're always putting revs on your engine. And at the end of the day, it's got to come down.
Somehow.
Here's the problem. And this is something called hypervigilance to an extent as well. So you're a cop. This is normal operating level, and it doesn't have to be police. This can be emergency service, any emergency service, or any military, fire. I'm not. Of course, no. Yes, it was my experience, so I'm going for that.
Yeah.
So this is normal operating level.
Yeah.
You have to operate here.
Yeah.
Now, what it means is when you drop harder.
Right.
So to get to normal
again,
you have to build up to get to normal. But of course, by the time you're at normal, you're then back at work, so you have to be here again. So work gets you best.
Yeah.
Family life gets you worse because they catch you down here. And they don't understand.
Yeah.
So then by the time you've got back to normal after the end of your 2 or 3 days off, you've been a shithead to your family. Then you're back at work and you got to be high again. Now, what's happened? All the other cops or emergency response, whatever, they've had the same thing. You guys get me.
Of course.
So you're all getting yourself at your best.
Yeah.
You go drinking with them, you go playing sport with them, you hang out with them because you guys get me. My family doesn't. I went home, I want to do is rest, and they were just nagging me. One of the things that enabled me to survive policing is I never hung out with police.
Okay.
That's not entirely true. The police I hung out with, we had something else in common.
Training or something.
Yeah, training was a big one. A friend of mine, P-Dog. I'm still in touch with him. Another one was pro wrestling.
Oh, cool. Okay, sure.
Another friend, he's not actually in the police anymore. He left too, but we still hang out. We go watch pro wrestling matches together.
Cool.
He now works in crypto and that sort of things. He's a security specialist in that.
Making bank, I'm sure.
Yeah. But you can't be together just because you're police.
Yeah, that can't be the thing that's
really. I mean, I was friendly with them,
of course,
and I wasn't like even the people you don't get on with. You work together, and there's an expectation professional. But I had my work life and I had my home life, and the second I was done, I was done. Now that took me a while to get to. When you start, you want to save the world,
of course.
I actually got banned for arresting people off duty at one point. When I was in England.
It's a little too aggressive.
Well, it wasn't even so much that. It's just that we can't keep paying you overtime.
Calm down.
Yeah, calm the fuck down. You know what I mean? But I got in a fair scrapes off duty. I mean, and it wasn't I was looking for it. You just find it.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, we were walking through the street in Manchester. I was a detective in Manchester and it was like, do you want to buy some Coke? And it'd be like, fuck off, mate. How much you fuck off? Just go on, get fucked. I'm not taking you in. Fuck off. I'm not in the mood. But it takes a while to get. This is like 8-9 years in now, and it's like this is not worth the effort. Fuck off. Whereas like 2 years ago, I'd been like, you know, I smell promotion. You know, all the good stuff that goes along with it. So again, but you learn, you have to get a balance in your life.
That's right.
This is one of the biggest problems in the world, and people don't have balance. And I do. I've got a YouTube channel called Reality Check with Jay Cooper where I break down,
which is fantastic. Everyone should watch. When I saw, I think I spent like 3 hours just watching. Like, amazing.
We're doing a relaunch on it because we got smashed on social media,
which is fucking insane.
Hey, dude, one of the most frustrating things is one of the ones on Instagram. We did a breakdown on fights in school and violence in schools, and I did a video on a guy that got assaulted by the teacher. He assaulted the teacher, and one of the other students came in for the side and absolutely fucking barreled him. You don't attack the teacher, which again comes back to our earlier discussion about ethics. Oof. And no, that you don't do that. It was one of those sort of things. Now, I like to think I offer an aspect of social commentary and redemptive value in the videos I put out.
Just watch them. Yeah, trust me, it's there.
It's not like, look at you two. Look at that blood. So I did this comment, and we got hit like, bam. We got a massive strike. The Budo Brothers, who are the Budo Brothers. Great guys, great awesome equipment, dudes. Great gear, well worth seeking out. And they got a great channel too. And we like, what do we do? And the frustrating thing is the original video in its entirety with no commentary or redeeming value to it whatsoever is still up. There. So there's no rhyme. And I appealed it. I was like, dude, the fuck? And I actually put that in and nothing.
Like, all right.
Nah, we made the decision, screw you. So that was one of the big frustrations with it. So Reality Check is actually coming back. It's on a little bit of a hiatus.
That's also because I enjoy the crap out of them.
Thank you. I'm proud of it. Yeah. I'm proud of what we do, and it's different enough because it's not just
the context of like the legality and just like the one of my favorites is the woman who spit on the dude and then gets his ass kicked by the girlfriend, and like that was perfect because it's like. It's a little bit tricky to really understand, especially when you first watch it. It looks like she just knocks her over, and she's obviously playing it up and everything. Like there was these are complicated situations. It really helps to have this context.
The most successful one I ever did, I think I got just shy of 14 million views on it on Facebook. Was the convenience store.
I missed that one.
It's a good one. There's it's in America. And there's some of the black community, and they're baking off at the guys from the Mexican community.
Okay.
And they're going, and he's just go, and the black guy's like, okay, let's do it. And Mexican's like, okay, gun comes out like that. And he's like, it's honest, oh shit, and it's like, tell me how far you want to go, and I'll meet you there.
Let's
do you know what I mean? It's one of those, I think. The second most successful one I did was a bar fight in a pub in England.
Yeah.
And it was two guys playing pool. And there's a piss guy going up to the table and he's like, when's it my time to play pool? And it's like, we're having a fucking game, mate. Go and fuck off. And so he gets the ball and goes and rolls it like that. And then the other guy goes, wraps a cue around his head. Now, it's like 4 shots right in. And it's like, it was Jesus. Now, there's a lot of actual psychology and combat ritual underpinning it, which is what I like to point out as well. It's not just this guy does this guy does that. Nothing ever exists in a vacuum. And it's very hard to, unless you understand the violent dance, it's hard to explain to someone why he hit him. Now, did he need to wrap a pool cue around his endpoint? No, I'm not saying he did. But there was
context, right? This is where the Think Street comes in, where
there was an invitation to dance. He wasn't just moving the pool ball.
Yeah.
That meant something. What he's telling him is, we're about to go.
Let's go. And he was like, okay.
Yeah, okay. He just was a better dancer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He danced before. But to explain to someone why rolling a pool ball, all he did was roll the ball. There's no need for that. It's like the ball is not, that isn't the thing.
You have to know that. If you're going to roll that, you better know what the fuck you're doing.
Now, you also have to understand as a teacher of self-protection, the ritual before you start to dance. If you don't, all you're teaching is a skill.
So I'm going to go self-defense. We're going to get to that last, but I've always been very interested as well, talking to someone who's been armed in these street situations. How different is it? And again, you have a particularly perspective because you've been an officer not armed in the UK, you've been an armed officer here. How different is it going into confrontations and dealing with people on the street when you have a gun on you?
For me, it wasn't. It was just an extra tool.
Okay.
Now, the difficulty comes in when you don't have anything else in your toolbox. If the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And that's the issue with certainly the way it's done in the US. You know, you got the gun
first.
Everything's gun first. I mean, the US generally is gun first. You know, like, and the only dickheads, I'll just do Glock food. Good on you, mate.
Yeah.
Meal Team 6. Well, the Gravy Seals is the other one. Gravy Seals. Again, not my. I just find that particularly funny. But you give them a gun. Someone fronts you, use a gun. Someone does this, you use a gun. They pull a knife, use a gun. You know, there's a risk of death, use a gun. They're driving away, you use a gun. And the States is a little bit, no pun intended, very much more Wild West.
Legitimately.
Canada's a lot tighter on the legislation surrounding firearms and usage and things like that. But again, the gun being there is an option. Now, bearing in mind, when I was in England, I already knew how to kill you without a gun.
Yeah.
I knew where my line in the sand was. So I already was, okay, if I'm here, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
All you did was just give me a more efficient way to do it.
Okay.
So for me, it wasn't like, oh, God, fucking hell. I already had my line in the sand of where lethal force or get someone in that can do lethal force was.
Yeah.
So because my decision-making protocol was already in place, all you did was give me another tool with which to affect my decision-making protocol. Does that make sense?
It does. But in terms of consequence, though, for example, this is something that I've heard people say is like, well, you didn't have to draw your gun. You could have just punched them, or you could have just scrapped at it a little bit. And I've been trying to explain to people, it's like, you can't afford to get knocked out.
No.
Yes,
sorry, I get where you go. Yeah, that's absolutely true. How many weapon-based situations do police officers find them in on a daily basis?
I would assume very little.
Every single one.
Okay, elaborate.
I've already got a weapon.
Of course.
Every single situation is a weapon-based encounter.
That's what we need to hammer into that a little bit if you don't mind.
So what it means is no matter where I go into, there's always the chance of a weapon being deployed either by me, or by the person I'm dealing with, or by someone else.
Yeah, you have to assume that there's some way, like if you're talking to a person, you have to assume to a certain degree that person might get your gun.
There's always a possibility that they're going to go for it. And again, it comes down to points, reference points, and knowing where your start points are for different things.
Right.
Like a flowchart. You can start a flowchart at the beginning, but you can also start halfway through.
Of course.
If you're already there. You don't have to go back to come here if you're already here.
Yeah, the person comes in, they have their hands down versus they come in and they have a broken bottle in their hand. You're starting at a different place.
And this is, again, why they used to do a use of force continuum, and it used to be you start here and you go up.
Yeah.
You don't. Sometimes you can just bang.
Yeah.
Within seconds, that's the decision because that's where you're at.
That's what
It's how you articulate why you're at that. So for every 1 second decision point, you should have put in hours and hours and hours of preparation for that 1 second, because what you decide in seconds will be discussed for months, if not years. So you have to put, one of my teachers says, you have to arrive before you've even left. You have to know where you're going to be. And this is where that legal, ethical, moral implications piece comes into it, because if you know where you are, even if it was the wrong decision, you can have the right reasons for it.
Yeah.
Maths teachers always want to see you're working out.
There we go. Yeah.
Because even if your answer's wrong, at least they can see how you got there and you get credit for that. It's actually, again, in my book, available at all good bookshops, and some bad ones too.
What's it called again?
Hound's Tale. At the minute, it's only out in ebook format.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into the where's and wherefores, but thank you, Canada Post, for delaying my proof copy so I can prove the physical one.
Shit.
That's fine. It'll come out when it comes out. But there's a story I point in that about, I was the night duty detective at Bootle Street in Manchester, and there was a fight at the bar literally half a block away. All of the units were it was one of those nights, it was at least on a Saturday night in Manchester, to be brutally honest, but everything was kicking off. So there were burglaries, and it was all just going down. And it was like, we need a unit there now. And I'm like, I'm at Bootle Street, I'm making my way, plain clothes, back up, nice, please. So I came down the steps, went out into the street. Now I've got my baton, I've got my CS spray, but again, I haven't.
And you're by yourself at this point?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm in my leather jacket. I must look like a member of the Gestapo. So I come right down the stairs like that. And a unit had luckily got away. And he said, 11, whatever it was, we're on scene. 3 offenders making off, heading eastbound on Bill Street. I said, yeah, I'm there. They're coming towards me. I can see them. So badged out, and I said, stop where you are. Okay, it's the English police, and stop or I'll shout stop again. And he went, fuck off, like that, and went to do a football shimmy. Just sent me one way, went the other, and I went, boom, kicked his leg out. Now, on the CCTV, I was reliably informed later on, the guy flew 8 foot horizontally, landed on the floor, and then slid on his face for another 2 foot. Okay. And his mates went, oh, like that. And I was like, whoa. I was on top of him like that. And it was like, yeah, control to... That's the victim. I'm like, oh, shit. Shit. Yeah, he is. Twice. Double your pleasure, double your fun.
Fucking hell.
So, I put the report in, good off.
Sorry, mate.
Sorry about that. So, but
Don't run from the cops, I think, is the
no, the thing, not sometimes you do, depends, we can be dickheads.
Sure.
But my thought process up until that, I was able to articulate because the information I was operating on was 3 offenders, very specific line, 3 offenders making away from the scene, running northbound. I tried to get them to stop. I have a badge in the air. Police, stop. And they try to get past me. Fuck off, I'm not stopping. All right, fine. And it wasn't like I Macho Man Randy Savaged him on the. It's like I just tipped his foot. Him up. I didn't know he was going to fly. And
did you see the footage as well?
I did. One of my mates did. He said, I'm not going to lie, mate. It was fucking awesome. And I'm like, but I mean, you laugh about it afterwards. But I mean, I did just banjo victim anyway. So I said, look, are you all right? And he's like, yeah. I said, right. He said, I should have stopped. I didn't. I said, yeah, you fucking should. So I'm dusting all the pubes and dog shit out of his head. So I took him and his mates inside. I said, look, sit down. So I got the statements out. And then I got them a coffee each. And I said, let's get your statement. I said, we're going to start with what happened and we're going to end with what I did. And he was like, no, we don't even mention that. I said, we do. We really need to get into this.
The gravel in your head.
Yeah, exactly. That fucking skid mark down the side of your face ain't going anywhere for a few weeks. So we got into it, and I didn't lead him because, again, this is another thing. And in the UK, I was the advanced level interviewer, which you don't do out here. The interviewing out here is not great, partly because the system doesn't let you. So in the UK, I got 24 hours to deal with you.
Oh,
but I can put that 24 hours on hold. So if I run the clock down to 12, I can pause it, and you come back in. I bail you. You come back in 3 weeks.
Oh,
clock starts again.
Oh, that's handy.
It's useful.
Cool.
Because it means you can actually do a proper investigation.
Yeah, you can take your time.
Hours, go. Did you do it? Yeah, no? Okay, right, let's charge it. But the system dictates, it's like the rule set dictates the skill.
Yes.
The system dictates the thing that you do, the skill set you do with that. But it doesn't mean you can't bring the same skill.
Good point.
You just have to adjust, tailor what you mean. You don't abandon what you've done. You just tailor it.
You just have to.
I'm an MMA fight when I enter a jiu-jitsu match.
Yeah.
I just don't hit you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I lose my ability to hit. It just means I don't.
And it's not as fun.
Yeah, it's not. It just isn't. Well,
punching on the ground is the best.
It's not good. But anyway, so that was my decision making that led me to making what was the wrong decision.
Yeah, was
fine.
Yeah. So did you get shit for it? Or
no.
Okay, yeah.
No, it was like, well, next time maybe start. And because when you're reviewing that, if you can see why I did it, even like dropped a victim. That's not good, Jay. It's not.
Especially on paper.
Exactly. Yeah, but this is why I did it. It's like this step was fine. This step was fine. This step was fine. This step was still fine.
Yeah.
Like minimal use of force.
Do you mean
it just did it to the wrong person?
Yeah. Well, that's detail.
Well, it's we quibble. Potatoes. We quibble over terms. But there's no way I could have known that.
Yeah.
So this is where it comes to variables, and everything we do. Coming back to the idea of always being a weapon involved, there are only ever 2 types of risk I'm dealing with: known risk and unknown risk. That's it.
Okay.
There's no high risk, low risk, medium risk, moderate risk. No, it's unknown and unknown. That's it.
Okay.
And once you actually start to deal with known and unknown, again, if your known factors are pushing you towards something,
Yeah.
then okay, this is why I do it. If you don't have much here and you've got, you might want to get a little bit more of a picture on this before you start doing something. When it comes to the concept of there's always a weapon involved in a police-based fight, it's true because I've always got a weapon, but that doesn't mean I'm seeing ninjas behind every hedge.
Mm-hmm.
Because policing is always portrayed as a dangerous profession. To an extent, it is. Most of the danger comes from roads and traffic stops and things like that. That's where most of the incidents come from.
Which is crazy.
In policing, by and large, and fire to the same extent, you're not paid for what you do. You're paid for what you might have to do. So I'm not always dealing with murderers, robbers, and gang fights. I'm by and large dealing with people that are lost, going the wrong way down a one-way street, blowing a red light in little bits and pieces like that, or the occasional kick-off at a school or something. The really high-level stuff is relatively infrequent. Fire don't always deal with fires.
Most of them are false alarms, right?
Yeah, or they'll they sleep till they're hungry and then they eat till they're sleepy.
Right.
And then but when they're going for it, they really go for it. Exactly.
It's 100%.
So they're on standby a lot for what they may have to do. Same with military. You know, unless you're in war, you're training and preparing to get ready for it, but you're paid to be ready for what you might have to do rather than what you're actually doing. Policing is the same thing.
I never thought of it like that. That's fascinating.
So this idea that it's dangerous, it's potentially dangerous. By and large, it isn't.
Okay.
But the problem is when you look at the idea, this is in the martial arts industry as well, the concept of the warrior, be the warrior. No, warriors are at war.
Okay.
I got rid of the warrior mindset quite a few years ago, both from my own personal training and in the way I teach people. So I teach a guardian mindset instead. A warrior, by definition, is at war.
Yeah.
A guardian is always on guard. Now, the guardian protects. The warrior fights. You can start to change the terminology of the warrior, but that's literally backward engineering shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's warrior, not
peace.
you know what I mean? Yeah. So a warrior is in a state of conflict all the time. Now you can start to say it's so meaningless now. I mean, you've got people that have got warrior on the arm because they got divorced.
Sure.
It's like fucking hell. Do you know what I mean? Like, you got a tattoo. Your women saying, I got warrior on my arm. Well, what have you done at the war? Well, I'm raising kids on my own. Great, that's you and every other fucker in the world. Do you know what I mean? So it's become almost a trite, meaningless term. Yeah. The martial arts one thing is like, be the warrior, win the fight, and all that. It's like, okay, great. The problem is, if you're a warrior, you're looking for the fight.
Yeah.
If you're a guardian, you protect. Now, protection can be something as simple as reaching out to someone and saying, I haven't heard from you for a while. How are you doing?
Very well said. That can be some of that's helped me a ton in my life.
Most of the stuff I do to help save people has nothing to do with fighting. It's everything to do with just letting them know there's an ear if they need one.
Fuck yeah.
So I'd rather be a guardian because a guardian will act as a warrior when it's necessary. But when it isn't necessary, they're still protecting because they're on guard and they're ensuring that the village is safe. So I don't like the warrior concept in terms of how it is for policing. A soldier, you're a warrior. You're at war, you're preparing for war, that's your role. A police officer, you have capacity to do that sort of thing with families, but you're a guardian. Your first role is the protection of the village, not to go out and invade the neighboring village. So that's why I adopted the guardian mindset, because when you protect, you not only protect others, you protect yourself.
But as you say, this is something that took a little while, right? You didn't start with this mentality.
Because again, the first thing they teach you is like survive the fight, endure the fight, warrior mindset, warrior skills. And it's like warrior.
Yeah.
Okay. And you want to be like Leonidas in the 300, It's like, Well, I'd rather be Dixon.Green.
Okay.
Which, again, for those of you that aren't from England, you probably need to Google that. But it's the friendly Bobby on the bike. You know what I mean?
Okay.
There's been a couple of instances where just listening to someone has stopped them committing suicide. I've probably saved more lives by talking to people in difficult situations than I have by going in, putting the door in.
Yeah.
And I've had those situations as well. I've been in firefights and, knife fights and things like that as well. But it's the small things that have the biggest effect. Because if someone's like angry and fighting and I beat them up, I stop that incident.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If someone's at a low point and I show them kindness or I listen or I'm able to find them back, they will pay that forward.
Yeah.
There's a ripple effect that you don't get So as a guardian, you're protecting for the future. You know, the old saying, like you're planting a tree that you won't sit under.
Nice.
You know, like society.
Yes.
The full quote, if I remember rightly, society grows great when men plant trees, the shade of which they will never sit under.
Fantastic.
And that's kind of the way I approach policing latterly when I got there. And it's the way I approach my teaching now. I don't anticipate what I teach will have some of it has an immediate effect, but I'm looking at teaching the person or the children that teach the children that teach the children that teach the children. And I want it to be a much more ripple effect. That's one of the reasons I did Reality Check.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be more than, if I teach one person how to punch, great. But if I put a thought process out there, because notice I don't do techniques in Reality Check.
No, it's a structure, right? It's like, here's a way of looking at the situation.
And again, I'm also very big. I actually did an entire course on it. It's an 7.5 hour course with lots of, all the reality checks are in there. And it's basically a condensed format of how I train my top level guys,
right,
and how I train people around the world on this. It's a 7.5 hour condensed course on forming your own mental and personal strategy to approach self-defense. Not a single technique do I teach in that.
Okay.
And I don't teach how to punch, I don't teach how to kick, I don't teach how to grapple. Most people that are coming to it should already know that. And if you don't, I can teach that, it's fine. But, but that's a separate thing to what I'm doing. If you do Taekwondo, I will teach how to make your Taekwondo context specific. If you do Jiu-Jitsu, if you do boxing, if you do, I don't know, any fencing, sure, why not?
Hey, Canada won a gold in fencing in the last Olympics. So
I used to fence back when I was a kid, actually. It was a giggle. One of the 3 core arts of Jeet Kune Do.
Because of that explosive big step in the center line and everything?
No, it was just one of the things that Bruce Lee did. So his brother
really?
Robert was a fencer. So the 3 core arts of Jeet Kune Do were boxing, fencing, and Wing Chun.
Oh, fuck. And I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan. I mean, we're not going to get to him today, but I'm going to get you back, and we're going to get a whole thing into Bruce Lee. But so, how many fights do you think you've been in at this point?
Roughly about 1,700.
1,700.
Now, I'll qualify that as well. Not every fight has been as violent as each one. I tend to say confrontations.
Sure.
Non-compliant confrontations. In all the arrests I've done, it's roughly 1,700-ish.
That's incredible.
It's not a precise number.
Sure.
Of that 1,700, maybe 10% have been fights,
right,
as opposed to confrontations and disagreements. And everything from, all right, come with me, dickhead. All right, for you fair cop.
To fucking...
That counts.
Of course.
To being shot at.
Yeah.
And everything in between. But the ones that I'd say are really violent is about 10%. Of those ones that are really, really, really violent, maybe about 50.
Okay.
In a 20-year career, that's not a lot. 50 really, really violent fights is actually a lot.
That's a lot.
If you're going out drinking on a weekend. Yeah. But in a 20-year career, when the expectation is you're going into those situations, it's actually not a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically 2 a year.
But that's really set you up. I mean, that is, I'm assuming, the foundation when you're teaching self-defense at this point. It's those kind of it is... I'm assuming a lot about de-escalation, and then, you know, how do you be very effective when de-escalation doesn't work, and what to actually do. So tell me just a little bit more about self-defense in general.
De-escalation is one of those things that everyone mentions and no one really understands.
Agreed.
You'll see a lot of things like environmental awareness is the first thing I start with. I don't actually start with de-escalation.
Yes.
So
a little bit there, please.
When I one of the organizations I used to be a member of was Progressive Fighting Systems, Paul Vunak.
Okay, in
Jeet Kune Do. So I was in that back in the day.
Cool.
And he taught something called Escape to Gain Safety, ETGS, which was the lower level thing for women and children. So Escape to Gain Safety also stands for eyes, throat, groin, shin. Those are the things you hit. So you got to escape to gain safety, you hit him in the eyes, the throat, the groin, or the shin.
Of course.
And the idea was, and it makes sense that you don't have time to learn to fight, so you hit one of those 4 targets and bugger off.
Right,
and that's it, you're out of there. Now, I actually like the idea, but I've developed it into a program all of its own, and it carries through. I'm not disparaging what they used to do with it in PFS, but it was almost a throwaway.
Okay, they didn't...
This is what we teach women and kids. The real shit's over here. I didn't like that concept, so for me, it actually runs through everything I do. There's still primary targets. We call it 4-circle theory for all you primaries.
There we go. There we go. I'm never going to forget
2 circles here, 2 circles here. Those are your primaries. But I've actually used that as a foundational piece of what we do, because if I'm drunk, high, injured, fatigued, whatever, I can still find those 4 targets.
Absolutely.
It's just I might be in a better position either from a side control or whatever. I'm here and it's left one in the eye or one in the dick or whatever it happens to be. Now, from field self-defense perspective, I added always escape to gain safety. Always stands for awareness. Awareness, eye, throat, groin, shin.
There we go.
Now, Jeff Cooper was a Marine instructor, and he developed Cooper's color code, which was more for states of shoot, no shoot back in the day. So you had code white, which is oblivious, code yellow switched on, code orange engaged, and code red decision-making protocol.
Mm.
So the idea was you're in a state of awareness as to where you are and where I'm going. If I'm code white, I'm like,
Completely not a clue.
that's 90% of the population generally anyway.
Great.
Now, Jeff Cooper was specifically doing it for shooting states.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to, have you got your target identification, all that. It then became sort of moved to the police market, and subsequently a lot of people are doing it within the civilian market.
Oh, fascinating.
But as a general rule, it's almost like having an internal radar. So generally speaking, if you're in code yellow, you're not looking at anything specific, but you're aware of what's going on around you.
Yeah. You know your exits. You know
your exit, but even just walking down the street, little bits and pieces. And funnily enough, coming back to that Ukraine versus Russian shoot thing in there as well, most people, if you turn a corner, if you watch people walk on the street, they hug the wall.
Yeah.
And so they hug the wall. So anything that's around that corner, you don't see until you're around it yourself. If you step out 18 inches to 2 feet, you will see there before you've actually cleared the corner. So you're giving yourself a greater state of awareness.
That's such a little freaking detail, but can make such a huge difference. If you're actually getting jumped,
100.
that's half a second.
That's it.
Everything.
I'm either out or I'm engaged.
It's it.
If I'm driving a car, I should have an eye lead of 10 seconds.
Of course.
If you're not got, and most people don't.
Yeah.
So 10 seconds away gives me a chance to see OODA, observe, orient, decide, act. So I've got 10 seconds to make that decision. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you're listening to me podcast do 10 seconds, that's like, fucking hell, get on. When you're doing 100 clicks down the highway, it's like, oh, shit. It's like, really fucking, you know what I mean?
It goes very different.
It does. So it's these little bits and pieces is your awareness state. What's going on around you, where you're at, who you're with, who's around.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't necessarily mean you're safer in safe places and you're more risk in dangerous places. So where would you generally say is safer? An alleyway at 3 a.m. or a high street at 3 p.m?
I mean, generally speaking,
Statistically speaking, the high street is more dangerous.
Really?
More crime.
Right, there's more physically, there's
more
people
crime.
there. Yeah.
There's more people.
Yeah.
There's more victims. There's more opportunities. It's a richer hunting ground. Now, does that mean the alleyway at 3 a.m. is safer? No, it fucking doesn't.
Of course.
But if you're an alleyway, if I drop you in an alleyway at 3 a.m, your head would be on a swivel.
Fuck, it better be.
So your awareness is raised.
Well, if you're walking down the middle of the street,
you're off because everyone else is around you. So you enter a fugue state. So this is how I illustrate the importance of awareness.
Oh, fantastic.
It's awareness of where you're at. So if you're in a dangerous environment and you know it's dangerous, you're less likely to be involved in it.
Because you're matching the 100%. What you should be.
When you're in a big crowd, you switch up.
I can't stand. I hate being like when you go to a concert and then everyone's leaving. Everyone like I can't fucking stand it. I need to like.
I always wait.
Yeah, I'm not. You go first. I just wait. I'm just waiting. I'm not dealing with this.
I'll either go to the ends of the wall or I'll sit in the seat. Yeah, and I'll just wait for everybody to go. Same one.
Oh, same.
We'll land it. Oh,
fuck no, man. Just when that many people around me and
wait till you're gone.
Fucking stressful.
But those little states of awareness, people, if you know it's risky, you elevate your risk level.
Yeah.
If it's safe, everyone switches off.
Which can be the most dangerous part.
Correct, because you don't. The crocodile waits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The crocodile waits. So when everyone's crossing the river, the bravest animal is the safest animal because the crocodile waits because it knows if it goes for it, everyone's gone. So as the animals are crossing the river, it waits and it waits until it's in the middle. Then it goes because it knows it's got, you know what I'm saying? So it waits until it's the time to strike. So if you want to, and again, leaving aside what we call the crimes of passion, which are impetuses like an argument or, whatever, or very specific predators that you get.
Things escalate out of nowhere.
Yeah. Most of the crimes that occur in those crowded environments are like purse snatchings or muggings or,
some kind of assault.
or a shoplifting or whatever it happens to be, or even something like you're getting knocked down on a car. More people, more incidents, more risk.
Of course.
So that awareness piece, it's not being paranoid. It's simply being cognizant of the potential risks to you and doing what you can to minimize aforementioned risks. The other thing about awareness is what we call an end game protocol. Now, if you get pulled over by a police officer, what should your end game be? Not getting a ticket.
Sure.
So whether you're going to get one or not, by and large, is out of your control. But your actions should all go towards not getting a ticket. If haven't you got any real criminals to catch, your chance of getting a ticket just rose by 300%. He'll probably already start writing it while he's in the window, where it's like, oh, hello, officer, sorry, may I ask
What's
why?
going-
Yeah. Okay, well, the reason I'm pulling you over, okay, fair enough. I'm very, very sorry about that. Oh, I wasn't fucking speeding. Here comes your ticket.
There you go.
So again, does it mean you're not going to get a ticket? No, but it dictates your actions and your behaviors.
And at least you have some framework then to
Correct. If it doesn't
structure.
work, at least you gave it your best shot.
Yeah.
So awareness isn't just environment, it's individual awareness. And it's also your trigger points, coming back to those ladder protocols. If I know I'm triggered by certain things and certain attitudes and certain statements.
We all are.
We all are. We've all got them. There are certain things that will cause me to spit on a sixpence. But if I can feel one of those coming on, it doesn't mean I'm not going to kick your head in. It just means, all right,
awareness.
I'm going to kick your head in for this reason, not because you said that. But I know I'm getting to a point where I'm likely to hit a trigger. So I can either take actions to calm myself down and step back, or it's like, here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. There it is. But it's just a complete being present is the key to it. Being present and in the moment. I don't like reactions. I like actions and choices. Not reactions.
Yes.
Now, there's a little bit of a paradox in there because skills need to be viscerally hardwired to you, so they're almost unconscious when it's necessary to do it.
Hence the training.
But you also have to make sure that you put as much into your mental training and preparation so that when you go and it just flies out, at least you knew it was the right time to do that. And it's very
because of panic and
it's
dull.
Terror. Mental training is actually kind of dull because a lot of it is like examining yourself and introspection within yourself. My course so far, we're halfway through it. You have to qualify with me once a year to maintain instructorship.
Cool.
You don't get a belt and keep it. You have to re-qualify on it.
It makes so much sense.
Apart from anything else, I'll change what I do. When I get better educated or better skilled, I might change something.
Sure.
So if you did it a year ago, you're a year out of date.
Yeah.
It's like, well, in that year I've got better. Why haven't you?
Yeah.
But leaving that aside, we've spent 6 months and all we've done is introspection. You need to know who you are. And it's very, very, it's not, most people don't know who they are.
I could not agree with you more than that. I mean, yeah.
So when you have these attitudes and these reactions, why?
Yeah.
Coming back to what we said at the beginning about technical things, I want to know why I react this way, why I think this way, why I feel this way.
Because I think you're touching on exactly one of the main questions that I'm sure people are thinking right now is, how long does it take for me to be able to defend myself? And I think a lot of what you're saying right now is that it's kind of an impossible question to answer because as much as sure, here's are the skills, again, the sport that you're going to be training, the art that you're going to be practicing, but who's going to dictate how self-introspective you're going to be? Like, who's really going to take that time to...
And are you down defending yourself or are you committing an assault?
Right.
Are you not criminal? Because you fight. There's fighting and there's defending yourself. They're not always the same thing. There's a crossover. Most people, when I'll say, I want to learn self-defense, it's like, well, self-defense is a legal term. It's not a skill.
Okay.
Self-defense is actually...
Because you generally call it...
I call it self-protection.
Self-protection.
If I defend myself, you've done something, I react accordingly. If I protect myself, I can just not go in dodgy places. I protected myself.
Yeah.
And this is, again, from Peter Considine, one of the gentlemen I mentioned at the beginning. He coined that term, and I've never used it. I sometimes do use self-defense simply because people understand it. So I'm not so precious and pedantic. No, but
I like that self-protection.
Don't defend yourself, protect yourself.
Yeah, it's much more encompassing, right?
Yeah.
It includes a lot more.
Yeah. So when you go, most people I want to learn self-defense. They'll say, do jiu-jitsu, do MMA, do Muay Thai, do boxing. I love all those arts.
Yeah.
I love them to death.
Absolutely.
It's not self-defense. Self-defense is 90% non-physical.
Of course.
Now, the 10%, you do want the Muay Thai, the boxing, the MMA.
You want some fucking hit that bag.
Yeah, you want something that has a pressure metric with it. And this is one of the honesties. Like in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, I'll kind of incorporate grappling as one thing. They're the most honest. Boxing and Muay Thai, the second most honest. And
is that because the way you train it and the way you apply it is the most
honest? That. So the reason I say jiu-jitsu and wrestling is the most honest versus boxing and Muay Thai. Now, boxing and Muay Thai is striking, and talk about clinching things. Well, I use boxing at its simplest level. Even a really bad boxer can land a lucky punch.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone that has
puncher's chance.
Yeah, the puncher's chance, as they call it. Even someone that's never done anything in life can just swing wild. And
that's why I would never punch in a fight.
Yeah.
Who knows if I'm going to get caught?
But you'll never land a lucky submission.
That's it.
You'll never land a lucky pin. You can do that or you can't. Yeah. So that's why there's an honesty to it, because you can't bluff it.
That's fantastic. I never thought of it like that, but that's such a good point. No one accidentally
you can't
naked choke someone.
Yeah, exactly. I accidentally put an armbar on you or something like
triangle
that. So that's why it's honest in terms of its expression.
Yeah.
The other reason why they're honest is you can't bluff it.
I wish you could.
No, yeah, so do I. But it's like jiu-jitsu is like...
Yeah, it's one of the most honest things.
You blag that, I'll know in seconds if you blag me.
Yeah.
And
as soon as I saw you put your side control on Marlon, I'm like, that guy knows how to grapple. Immediately.
But again, that's my side control. It's not the way I was taught. I developed that over the years for a couple of reasons.
And policing must have been one of them.
One of them, yeah. And again, you learn to fight relative to what you're doing. Now, I didn't want to ever have a skill set which requires an adjustment mid-flow. Mm-hmm. So I'm always protecting my weapon.
Yeah, of course.
So that's why so that's a lot of the reason why it dictates why I do things the way I do it. So that's why they're the most honest in terms of their expression. And the other reason is they've got a competitive aspect.
Yes. You can't get to certain judo. I think that's one thing I love about judo. You literally can't get belts without winning in competition.
To beat someone.
Yeah, you have to do something to do it. You have to fucking use it.
Black belt with my jiu-jitsu, the way I teach it is you've got going through the belts, you have to show so many pins, so many subs from position, sweep, and all the good stuff.
Of course.
And then you have to show self-defense against certain things.
Nice. And that's the cognizant awareness of when to use.
This is context-based now.
Yes.
Then as you start to go in the belts, it's like now it's a competitive role.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a competitive role from standing. Now you could use jiu-jitsu, they can punch you.
Yeah.
You can't. You've got to... So you asked to the point where by the time you go for black belt, you're basically having an MMA match. You've done 2 hours worth of technique demonstrations against people that are fresh.
Thanks.
Yeah, basically. Now, it's not to say, oh, you're dead, you've earned your belt. It's just a level I want to put in there. I don't want to ever put a black belt on someone that can't fight. Now, does that mean you have to fight out a black belt? No, it just means you have to with me.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't, that's fine. Other schools have their own way of doing things.
Of course.
So the competitive aspect in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai boxing, again, you have to be able to apply what you know in a non-compliant environment.
Yeah.
You don't have that in a self-defense art.
Which is why you need the different elements, right?
Correct. Now, Kano, when he took judo to the police games, because the Tokyo police were looking at finding their official system.
Right.
The reason judo prevailed wasn't because of technical superiority.
It's the training protocols.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. They train under pressure.
Yeah.
They fight under pressure.
Exactly.
Other arts had more in it.
Yeah.
Theoretically, on paper, they were more dangerous. But
the application is just not as good.
They weren't drill under pressure. Heraclitus, 650 BC, you'll never rise to the occasion. You'll fall to the level of your training. Okay?
Every time.
And so it's true.
Yeah.
You'll do the most of what you do the most of.
That's it.
So if you train under pressure, you'll perform under pressure. If you don't, you won't. Now, you can take any physical skill, a finger lock, a choke, a punch, a kick, a grapple, whatever, and train under pressure. It will tell you if it works. So you have to have a protocol where you can apply that in. And I'll say this a lot. It's not my saying. I can't remember where I first heard it. I think it was the website Bullshido, which isn't as active as it used to be, but it was a big thing. The phrase Bullshido came from the Bullshido website.
Okay.
Now, I'm friends with Frost, who was actually the founder of that website. I'm actually friends with him. And I'm pretty sure if it wasn't him, Neil, if it wasn't you, mate,
sorry,
I'm giving you credit for it anyway. If you can't hit me with a 16-ounce glove, you can't hit me, period.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
So the idea of too deadly to spar and all that sort of thing, it's well, but if you put gloves on, if you can't touch me, you ain't fucking touch me with your ninja fingers either.
Oh, fuck yeah. Fantastic.
Which is true. Again, that's that think, train art, the practice art, train sport, think straight.
That's it.
So if I can go bam and hit you with a jab, I can go and stick my fingers in your eyes as well. But I have to have the one for the other to work.
Exactly.
And if you watch my main teacher, Sifu Harinder Singh Sabharwal,
he's insane.
Dude, it's going against him is like literally fighting a panther with knives.
Fuck. You see trapping hands doesn't work? Watch that guy fucking move.
He'll blow you away. He'll make you a believer.
I've only seen some videos online, but Jesus.
But he's also, again, what people don't know about him is he's trained with Olympic level wrestlers.
Right.
Coach John Clark out of States, who's also a police officer as well. Another great guy. He is Derek Sierra, Federal Marshal, and he was also a professional boxer. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Marcel Luzado, 6-time world Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. Obviously, he does Wing Chun under Sifu Ben Day. He was a full instructor under Paul Vunak. He's a guru in Sarada Eskrima. Singh he's got it all. And this is the thing when people say, "Oh, good luck doing it against a BJJ guy." It's like he is a BJJ guy.
Yeah. He will actually.
He will actually.
People don't know how much Bruce Lee grappled.
Well, again, Gene LaBelle was obviously one of the more. But he also Jesse Glover was a judo black belt.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
Yeah, not a lot of people do. Ed Hart was a boxer. A lot of the early guys Bruce trained with were high-level guys. The only one that ever trained with Bruce Lee that hadn't trained was Ted Wong.
Okay.
And Ted Wong was an experiment. Can I take someone with no skill and train them up?
Bring them up?
I'm not getting into levels or who was the best fighter and blah, blah, blah. Ted Wong was not the best fighter in JKD. Was he good? Irrelevant. He wasn't the best fighter. But the best fighters were already ones that had done something. Probably you're looking at a guy like a Jesse Glover or probably, in my opinion, a guy like a Larry Hartzell. But Larry Hartzell was also a tough man guy. He was a Vietnam veteran. So there's a lot of other stuff that goes into being a tough guy other than your physical skill.
No doubt.
But leaving that bit aside, Bruce and Jesse Glover, they used to train together and they would wreck the apartment.
Really?
Go over the furniture and things, and they would train in Jesse's stuff. And then Bruce would say, okay, now we do my stuff.
Right.
Because he would see what Jesse had and then come up with a way to fix it. There's is it the Taskmaster in Marvel Comics? The villain?
One of them, yeah.
He actually sees you fight.
And he can do anything that he can do immediately.
He can see anything.
Yes.
Bruce Lee had that ability to see what you were doing and then fix it on the go sort of thing.
Anderson Silva too.
Yeah, same sort of dealio. Now, Bruce Lee, of course, didn't have a formal, but there was no real formal tournaments as such to fight back then.
Yeah.
But you look at the guys that he taught that could fight, and they stayed with. So if these guys stayed with him, there must have been something on the table. Yeah. Now, Bruce used to teach a lot of people for free. And one of the lessons, he said, the lessons are free, but they're free for a reason. Because I'm not just teaching you, you're training with me.
Oh, yes.
So I will teach you bits.
Yes. But I'm using your body to get me
this
better.
Isn't all you.
Yeah.
Now, one of my very dear friends, he's actually based in Calgary, Michael Billings. Calgary's best kept secret in martial arts. If you're in Calgary and you get a chance to train with Michael Billings, you must. Okay? Absolutely one of the best kept
Billings?
secrets. Yeah, Billings, Billings. Now, Michael trained under Jesse Glover.
Fucking hell.
And he also trained under lots of many other people over the years, but he had some training under Foot Young, who was actually one of the other guys that taught Bruce Lee. He was one of Bruce Lee's relatives.
Okay.
And he taught Red Bolt Wing Chun to Bruce when he came out here as well. A lot of people don't know his connection, but he actually had as much of an input as Ip Man did.
Jesus.
Again, people don't know this stuff.
We're going to get into, we're going to do like a whole thing where me and you are just nerd out on Bruce Lee.
We'll do the Bruce Lee nerding.
I'm going to finish with this if that's okay, because I want to be respectable over time.
All over the place.
Yeah, that's what we do.
My ADHD, I do apologize for that.
Me too.
If I didn't answer that question, just put it in the comment section.
I don't think we left anything hanging. I think we're pretty good, but I'm going to ask, because I want to get into more philosophy stuff as well. We're going to get into that later because I think you seem like you're very interested in that stuff as well. So here's just a weird question that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Do you think that Bruce Lee thought of his own life as a success? And let me just caveat a little bit this way. I think in terms of if you think that he was more interested in being a martial artist, I think he accomplished everything that he wanted to do from real martial arts perspective. I'm not convinced that he would have been fully happy with his life in terms of like, he was known as kind of a hard guy to be around, even like his wife and stuff like said, you know, he's not the easiest person to be around all the time. Do you think that he would have judged his own life well?
Bruce had one overriding sentiment in almost everything he did, and that was to honestly express himself. So he didn't have an aspiration necessarily of an ideal. When I'm here, I'm good.
Okay.
Or this is what I will do to be good. All he wanted to be in any given situation, he wanted to honestly express himself at that moment in time, whether that be physically, emotionally, vocally, acting, speaking, lecturing, teaching, whatever it was. He always wanted to be authentically Bruce.
And fully engaged.
Yeah,
right?
For better or worse,
okay,
authentically Bruce.
Okay.
So by the measure he set himself, I would say yes, because few people express themselves as authentically as Bruce did.
I would agree with that 100%.
So would he have chosen to die at 32? No,
I don't think so.
I very much doubt it. And this is, again, one of my frustrations with a lot of the larger JKD community. At 32, I barely knew my arse from a hole.
I was a disaster.
But Bruce, as a remarkable human being, wasn't finished.
That's the thing, right?
But none of us are.
Yeah.
We're only finished when the lid closes.
Yeah.
So in the sense that if you look at his legacy, his films, his art, his thinking, you say martial arts. Even to this day, Bruce Lee is still one of the top
100%.
3 or 4 names that comes up.
Unequivocally.
He's a brand. He's a superstar. Yeah. He's an icon. He's a Marilyn Monroe. He's an Elvis Presley. He's James Dean. He's one of those figures.
He was a god in my house. Like my dad is his favorite martial artist. I mean, he was the standard in my house.
So from that perspective, he still lives on.
Yeah.
Whether even the ones that don't like him have, you know, you're the worst.
Gotta respect him.
Yeah, you're the worst pirate I've ever heard of, but you have heard of me. It's that sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with Bruce Lee. Whether you like him or not, you know who he is. Because no question about it. Same with Ali. When he transcended boxing.
Oh, 100%.
One of the reasons he's the greatest isn't necessarily because of his ring craft. No, it's because of his mental and who he was outside the ring. 100%. Someone once said, so Muhammad, you know, half the audience are here for you and half the audience for your opponent. He goes, no, they're all here for me. Just half of them want me to lose.
That's fucking perfect.
So, and it's the same with Bruce. So in terms of, do I think he would have been happy with his life? And yeah.
Cool.
Would he have still been developing? Yeah.
And that till his dying day.
Yeah, exactly. But he always tried to be authentically Bruce. And in the sense that was the measure he set for himself, I'd pretty much say he hit it.
Outstanding, man. Jay, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll definitely do this again if I can have you back, but that was outstanding.